Chapter 3107. The Six Paths of Reincarnation was in charge of the Six Paths of Reincarnation. It was in charge of life and death. In an instant, the rules of life and death emerged, and it was terrifying. Both of their fists were mighty and unparalleled. They didn't even use any fancy moves. They just punched out with a simple punch. The collision between the two caused the void to distort. The entire space was completely crystallized under the attack of the two. One could imagine how terrifying the pressure of the two's fists was. Even the invisible rules of order in the void melted. It was like a liquid metal that flowed amidst the collision between the two. Moreover, it spread out in all directions along with the counterforce of both sides. Pum! The tyrannical sky-shaking Turtle Emperor retreated a few steps and barely managed to eliminate the counterforce of Yi Shiwen's Six Paths of Reincarnation fist. As the saying goes, once an expert makes a move, you can tell whether he's skilled or not. Just now, he saw the Lord of the Nirvana realm suffering a loss in Yi Shiwen's hands. After all, his physical cultivation was far superior to the Lord of the Nirvana realm. In terms of combat power, he was even confident that he was above the Lord of the Nirvana realm. However, he was still at a disadvantage in the collision. Sky-shaking Turtle Emperor is only SOSO. If you disperse now, you can still live. Yi Shiwen shouted. However, the one who answered him was the Rain Emperor. The Rain Emperor finally couldn't help but make a move. He casually grabbed the water attribute rule from the void and refined it into a flowing crystal liquid. Then, it turned into a treasured sword and instantly launched a counterattack against Yi Shiwen. All of this happened in the instant when Yi Shiwen repelled the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. It could be said that his old power was exhausted, and he hadn't used up his new power yet. The Rain Emperor was also a battle-hardened emperor. He grasped the right opportunity. An inexplicable light flickered in his eyes. The sword brought with it a terrifying illusion of a monstrous and earth-shattering destruction. Just this one sword strike was enough to cause countless stars in the world to dim. All the water elemental laws in the world were condensed and entered his body, causing his strength to increase greatly. Just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen couldn't react in time and would definitely resist the Rain Emperor's attack, they saw that behind Yi Shiwen, the wings of time instantly wrapped around him. Bang! The sword slashed at the wings of time. Both sides were not real entities. Instead, they were divine abilities condensed from laws. The Rain Emperor truly lived up to his reputation as a sovereign monarch who had comprehended the water element regulations to the pinnacle. Although, in a sense, the time regulations were far more terrifying than the water element regulations, he was able to use the water element regulations to form a sword to contend against the wings of time, and he was not at a disadvantage in the slightest. However, it was useless. Yi Shiwen took this opportunity to finally seize a gap. He turned around and formed a seal. His hands became crystal clear and instantly formed the seal of a martial emperor. Then, he ruthlessly smashed it in the direction of the Rain Emperor. Cheat! The martial emperor seal transformed into an astonishing immortal light and flew out from Yi Shiwen's hand. Then, it transformed into an ancient divine mountain and directly fell in the direction of the Rain Emperor. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. Even the Rain Emperor hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen's reaction speed would be so fast. Generally speaking, a sovereign monarch definitely had areas that they were good at, and also areas that they were not good at. However, Yi Shiwen seemed to have no weaknesses. He could compete with the ruler of the opposite shore, who was the fastest in terms of speed, and, at the same time, he could compete with the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. It was as if he had no weaknesses. Yi Shiwen's counterattack was similarly sharp and terrifying. In fact, it could even be said that it was extremely fast. In an instant, it had already transformed into an immortal light and attacked. The Rain Emperor didn't have time to react, but the water element regulations on his body automatically formed a battle suit and protected him within it. Bang! The instant the martial emperor seal came into contact with the battlesuit on his body, it completely destroyed his battlesuit and completely collapsed. It transformed into sparkling and translucent crystals that filled the sky and dispersed in all directions. Then there was a loud sound. The Martial Emperor seal directly smashed the Rain Emperor. Although there was already a buffer, the Rain Emperor's speed was no match for the ruler of the opposite shore, and he was directly smashed. The divine light was dazzling, and the auspicious color was astonishing. In that shocking collision, the Martial Emperor seal directly smashed a large hole in the Rain Emperor's chest. What flowed out of the Rain Emperor's chest wasn't blood, but water. At the crucial moment, the Rain Emperor had transformed his physical body into water and avoided the fatal attack. He hadn't been instantly killed by Yi Shiwen. Every sovereign emperor had their own trump card, and if the difference in strength wasn't too great, it would be very difficult to instantly kill them. Although he didn't have the speed of the ruler of the opposite shore, he also had his own trump card that could save his life. However, even so, his expression wasn't good. The price to use this kind of technique was really too high, and he was even directly hit by Yi Shiwen. Severely injuring 3 people in a row is really too shocking. A sovereign emperor couldn't help but suck in a cold breath, as if he had seen the most inconceivable miracle. Ever since Yi Shiwen had interfered in the fight for the Time Beast Great Ancestor, he had actually consecutively injured 3 invincible existences of the 6th level. Among these 6th level existences, apart from the War Eagle Emperor that had been killed by the Time Beast Great Ancestor, none of the other 3 were opponents that they could match. However, the 3 of them had attacked one after another, and all of them had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen seemed to have injured the 3 of them in a row, and he didn't seem to be in a difficult situation at all. Although the 3 of them had already been severely injured by the Time Beast Great Ancestor, Yi Shiwen's combat strength was still shocking enough. Had he just broken through? This was impossible. Could it be that he had concealed his strength just now? Soon, everyone overturned this opinion. After all, there were many experts present, and this wasn't something that could be easily concealed. However, no matter what, Yi Shiwen's amazing strength had completely subdued everyone. No wonder he dared to participate in this. It turned out that he had the capital to do so. I'm afraid that there will be another peerless expert in this world from now on. After he goes one step further and enters the 7th level, I'm afraid that even the heavenly law won't be able to do anything to him. Some people couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Previously, there were experts from the heavenly law who wanted to encircle and kill Yi Shiwen. Now, it seemed that they were simply courting death. At least, Yi Shiwen would be able to escape freely. In front of him, numbers didn't seem to matter at all. In an instant, an immortal light flew out of the void and directly bombarded in Yi Shiwen's direction. Only then did everyone see that this immortal light was actually the light of gung metal. Moreover, it wasn't just ordinary gung metal. It was the gung metal origin, which was something that was hard to find in the world. Now, this gung metal origin had transformed into a terrifying attack and directly bombarded Yi Shiwen. Those sovereign emperors held their breaths. They didn't dare to blink. This attack was really terrifying. It could even threaten existences like them. This wisp of light wasn't very thick. However, it instantly broke the divine radiance protecting Yi Shiwen's body. Just when everyone thought that this ray of light was going to penetrate Yi Shiwen, the time robe emerged on Yi Shiwen's body and immediately protected him. This attack directly fell on the time robe. However, it wasn't able to break the time robe. It only left a huge mark on the time robe. A Taoist robe refined from time fragments. Many people's eyes widened. Time fragments themselves were very rare. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to fight to the death here. The value of the time robe that Yi Shiwen was wearing was imaginable. It could be said to be priceless. Even these sovereign emperors would drool at the sight of it. How many time fragments did this take? This person probably isn't a rogue cultivator. This isn't something that a rogue cultivator should have. Some people didn't approve of Yi Shiwen's identity as a rogue cultivator. Although the resources in the Fortune God dynasty could be said to be far superior to other worlds, the competition was also very fierce. Obtaining a Taoist robe like the time robe wasn't something that a rogue cultivator could obtain. Could it be that he's a sovereign emperor who ascended from the lower realm? So people also guessed the truth. This was also the most likely possibility. It might not be possible in the Fortune Divine dynasty, but if they were invincible existences in the lower realms, gathering all the treasures in the lower realms, it might not be impossible for them to obtain such an opportunity. Everyone looked at the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor seemed to be slightly shocked by his failure. Just now, his Gung Metal origin couldn't break the defense of the time robe. What was even more terrifying was that there was a big hole in the chest area of Yi Shiwen's time robe. Even his attack couldn't break the time robe, but a big hole was blasted in it. Who did this? However, this thought only flashed in his mind for a moment because he saw that Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate at all after blocking his attack. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed the time Beast Emperor Ancestor. It seemed that Yi Shiwen had no intention of entangling with him. Immediately, he understood Yi Shiwen's plan. Although they were seriously injured by the time Beast Emperor Ancestor, as time passed, their recovery speed was getting faster and faster. If the battle continued, the situation would become more and more disadvantageous for Yi Shiwen, unless he could kill them in one fell swoop. But that was simply impossible. Although Yi Shiwen's strength had improved greatly, he wasn't strong enough to kill them in a second. Are you trying to escape? The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor stepped on the ground and chased after Yi Shiwen. You know that you can't beat me, so you can only run away? Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, it's still too early to say who's the winner. We'll fight again someday. Yi Shiwen laughed. He wasn't angry at all. His current strength was indeed inferior to the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. However, Yi Shiwen was confident that when he stepped into the peak of the sixth realm, he would be able to completely crush the time Beast Emperor. At this time, fighting head-on was not the best choice. As he spoke, Yi Shiwen formed a monstrous giant hand and directly grabbed the time Beast Emperor Ancestor. Chapter 3108. Yi Shiwen stretched out his hand and grabbed the time Beast Emperor Great Ancestor. He shot out a beam of celestial light and was about to collect the time Beast Emperor Great Ancestor's corpse. Die! The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's eyes widened in anger. Yi Shiwen had caught up and was about to take the time Beast Emperor Great Ancestor away. This had already exceeded the bottom line of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's body was shining with golden light, and his body exuded a layer of dazzling metal coat. He was like a peerless war immortal that was about to sweep away everything in front of him. He was almost worthy of being one of the strongest in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. He exploded with astonishing strength the moment he appeared. The Gung Metal Tiger Emperor stepped on the ground, and the sky was filled with Gung Metal Sovereign Qi. He directly attacked Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if Yi Shiwen had grown eyes on the back of his head. Numerous principles of the world had evolved into tangible divine chains of principles and were twining around his body. They were radiating with multicolored flowing lights, and a dense mist pervaded the air. It looked brilliant and dreamy. When the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor attacked, the divine chains formed by the laws of heaven and earth soared into the sky and attacked the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. In an instant, all kinds of divine chains danced between heaven and earth. It was as if there were endless celestial lights dancing between heaven and earth. Each of these divine chains contained the laws of heaven and earth, and their power was even more terrifying. Each of these divine chains could pierce through the heaven and earth. In the face of such an attack, even a terrifying existence like the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor couldn't let his body take it head-on. Otherwise, he might be pierced through. However, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor's response was also unparalleled. He roared, and his body turned into thousands of Gung Metal Sovereign Qi. He directly attacked the divine chains of order. Boom, boom, boom. The divine chains of order collided with the Gung Metal Sovereign Qi. In an instant, there were countless collisions. For a moment, the endless sound of explosions seemed to be the only sound in the world, covering everything. The spectators in the distance were all terrified. The combat strength of the two was too shocking. They were like monsters. Yi Shiwen had just advanced to the 6th level, and his combat strength was far above that of an ordinary 6th level sovereign. Even if the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was seriously injured, his combat strength was still not something that the Rain Sovereign and the others could hope to match. The two of them were like two humanoid monsters colliding with each other. Both sides had already unleashed their battle prowess to the extreme. No one could compare to them. The 7th Metal Tiger Emperor wasn't feeling well either. After all, Yi Shiwen was in his peak condition. Moreover, he had just been seriously injured. So, he couldn't be compared with his peak condition even if he used a secret technique to suppress his injuries. The recoil from the successive collisions directly shook his body, causing his injuries to worsen. This caused his body to consume even more energy, which made his eyes even colder. He shuttled back and forth among the divine chains of the world's principles, and constantly destroyed the divine chains that were attacking him. Not far away, Yi Shiwen had already started to gradually collect the Time Beast Emperor ancestor. One must know that a terrifying existence like the old ancestor of the Time Beast Emperor had already formed a body of its own. It had a world inside of it, so it wasn't easy to capture it. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't capture the old ancestor of the Time Beast Emperor in an instant. Otherwise, the Time Beast old ancestor would have long been taken away by someone. However, more than half of them had already been taken away by Yi Shiwen, and the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor could no longer maintain its so-called elegant and noble appearance. It began to roar, and its entire body exuded a dreadful radiance. Then, it transformed into a monstrous divine radiance that swept in all directions. Whoosh! Suddenly, a long river appeared. At first, it was flowing slowly. Then, it began to surge crazily and roar like a great river rushing towards the sea. It directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. This long river was golden in color. It wasn't a real Yangtze River, but a terrifying long river of laws that was completely condensed from the Golden Hepta Chi. The aura of the Golden Hepta was flowing everywhere, and it could erupt with thunderous sounds as it flowed. In an instant, that golden radiance submerged the universe. No one could clearly see what it was. At this moment, it seemed as if the Golden Hepta Chi in the world had been summoned by the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Only the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, who was an invincible existence, could mobilize all the Golden Hepta Chi in the world with his own ability. He wanted to destroy Yi Shiwen with the long river of Golden Hepta. He wanted to cripple him and prevent him from taking away the old ancestor of the Time Beast Emperor. He had already used his own origin. Otherwise, it would be impossible to use such a terrifying Golden Hepta Chi. In order to stop Yi Shiwen, the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor didn't hesitate to injure his origin. In the face of this terrifying attack of the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor, Yi Shiwen tightly held onto the old ancestor of the Time Beast Emperor. He turned around and let out a long roar. His body flashed with the power of time. He knew that this was the last attack. Whether he could succeed or not depended on this. He absolutely couldn't give up. Inside his body, another fragment of the law of time was burned by him. It turned into the power of time and poured into the time robe. This power of the time robe instantly transformed into an amazing time domain. Yi Shiwen used a fragment of time as the price to transform into this time domain fragment. It turned into a similarly terrifying power. Although it wasn't easy to draw out the origin, the power unleashed by the time fragment could only be stronger. Rumble! The time domain and the long river of Golden Hepta collided directly. The two terrifying surging forces collided in the void. Dazzling light burst out, making people unable to open their eyes. The whole world shook violently under the collision of the two. If it wasn't for the power of rules that stabilized the world from time to time, the entire inner world of the Pan-Heavenly Palace might have been penetrated by the battle between the two. The quasi-emperors had already retreated far away. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the shockwaves. Many emperors were even more stunned. Compared to the combat power of these two people, their combat power was far inferior. It was unknown when the collision of these two groups of terrifying light started. It was even more unknown when it would end. It seemed like an eternity with no end in sight. The light that burst out was eternity. Roar! It was a loud roar. Amidst the light that burst out from the collision of the two, a terrifying figure gradually materialized. It was like an unparalleled, fierce tiger, suddenly pouncing in the direction of the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor. There was Yi Shiwen and the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, on the other side. The heptametal Beast Emperor had been forced to its limit. It was already trying its best to make Yi Shiwen stay. Ha ha ha! Thank you, don't send me off. Suddenly, the figure pounced on empty air. Immediately afterward, Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly broke free from the two groups of light. He opened the wings of time behind him, flapped a five-colored streamer, and flew towards the void in the distance. He succeeded. He actually succeeded? Everyone was dumbfounded. Although they were already mentally prepared, they were still completely shocked when they saw this scene with their own eyes. Did Yi Shiwen really manage to snatch the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, in front of everyone? This made everyone feel as if this was completely unreal. Yi Shiwen definitely wasn't the one with the highest cultivation among the crowd. In fact, he didn't even have any helpers. He was completely alone and even had to face the joint attack of several emperors of the Sixth Realm. But it was useless. No one could stop him from taking away the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor. Roar! 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 Only the angry roar of the heptametal Beast Emperor remained between heaven and earth. He had even transformed into his original form. He had just used the power source, so there was no way he could chase after Yi Shiwen now. He also couldn't catch up with Yi Shiwen, who had unfolded the wings of time. The other emperors of the Sixth Realm had already been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. They were powerless. Who would dare to chase after Yi Shiwen? Wouldn't that be courting death? The power of Yi Shiwen consecutively injured the emperors of the Sixth Realm was still in their minds. They probably wouldn't be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. Yi Shiwen unleashed the power of time and quickly escaped from everyone's line of sight. He only heaved a sigh of relief when he couldn't sense anyone else chasing after him. Fortunately, the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, had erupted at the last moment. He eliminated the Battle Eagle Emperor of the Sixth Realm and also seriously injured the others. Only then could he take away the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, so easily. Otherwise, he might really have to fight with his life on the line. He might even have to use his own power source like the heptametal Beast Emperor. At this time, the body of the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, in Yi Shiwen's body had further decayed. In some places, the golden skeleton could already be seen. These emperor-level creatures didn't cultivate magical powers, so they couldn't live forever. After they died of old age, their bodies would quickly decay, and finally, only the skeleton would be left. Yi Shiwen waved his hand, and the corporeal body, which would have decayed after some time, disappeared without a trace in an instant. Unlike the corporeal body of an emperor king, the corporeal body of an emperor-level creature that died of old age was of no value. The energy contained in their corporeal body had long been exhausted when they experienced the angel decay. Yi Shiwen quickly looked at it, but he was soon disappointed because he didn't find any phaseless spirit bones on the corpse of the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor. It seems that not all emperor-level creatures of the Ninth Realm can produce phaseless spirit bones, or only heavenly master-level creatures from other domains can produce phaseless spirit bones. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but squint his eyes. His knowledge of the phaseless spirit bones was also obtained from Dan Emperor. However, Dan Emperor's knowledge of the phaseless spirit bones was extremely limited. He mainly knew about it from that elixir recipe. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that he had made a mistake. After the body disappeared, only 2 clusters of strange flowing lights were left in the entire skeleton. One of them was the core of the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor, a fragment of the law of time. The other cluster was a cluster of light rippling with power. It was also the last source of energy of the old ancestor of the time, Beast Emperor. Chapter 3109. Needless to say, the time fragment was the most important material that Yi Shiwen needed to repair the time robe. As for the other ball of origin energy, it was also the last thing left of the Time Beast Emperor. If the Time Beast Emperor had died a normal death, this ball of origin energy might have dissipated, or it might have tainted the last of his primordial spirit, giving birth to Ain's spirit. It could be said that this was the last essence left by the Time Beast Emperor. It might have brewed into a second life, but now it had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. Ha, great! Yi Shiwen was overjoyed. This mass of original essence was left by the Time Beast Emperor. Although it could not be compared to the peak, it was still extremely precious for Yi Shiwen. Absorbing this mass of original essence left by the Time Beast Emperor was enough to save Yi Shiwen countless years of time. It would allow him to reach the sky in a single bound. Otherwise, it would take many years of hard work to reach the peak of the sixth realm from the initial stage. Yi Shiwen wanted to find a non-phase spirit bone from the Time Beast Emperor because he wanted to refine a Tai soul gathering pill. If he swallowed another Tai soul gathering pill, his cultivation would not only advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time, but more importantly, it would be much easier for him to reach the seventh realm. He did not know how much time it would take. The effect of the Tai soul gathering pill was the most useful under the seventh realm. Once he passed the seventh realm, although it was not completely useless, it was not comparable to breaking through the Emperor realm when he was under the seventh realm. Originally, Yi Shiwen wanted to refine it himself, but the only possibility was that the Time Beast Emperor did not have the non-phase spirit bone, which made Yi Shiwen feel a little regretful. It seems that after I leave the Heavenly Palace, I must find a way to find the Pill Emperor and get the Tai soul gathering pill that I should have. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said, with the Tai soul gathering pill, it would not be difficult for him to reach the seventh realm. At that time, he would really have the capital to challenge the heavenly Taoism. The Emperor realm of the seventh realm and the Emperor realm of the sixth realm were only one realm apart, but the strength and status were worlds apart. They cannot be compared at all. No matter what, I'll refine this mass of origin essence first. Yi Shiwen immediately unfolded the wings of time behind him, flew out instantly, and disappeared into the sky. It didn't take long for the news of Yi Shiwen's battle with the seventh Metal Tiger Emperor and his success in snatching the Time Beast Emperor's ancestor from the seventh Metal Tiger Emperor's hand spread throughout the Heavenly Palace. The moment many rulers heard this rumor, they first expressed their disbelief. Everyone knew the strength of the Gongjin Tiger Emperor. There were only a few people who could contend against him. Even those few people did not dare to say that they had absolute confidence in snatching the item from the Gongjin Tiger Emperor's hands. Moreover, it was rumored that Yi Shiwen had simultaneously suppressed the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor and several other Emperor-level experts to snatch away the Time Beast Emperor. No matter how one listened to it, this was simply impossible. However, everyone soon understood the reason. It was because everyone had suffered a fatal blow from the Time Beast Emperor before his death. All of them had sustained serious injuries and were unable to display their true strength. In the end, Yi Shiwen had taken advantage of this loophole. Even so, Yi Shiwen's strength still made everyone feel extremely shocked. Obviously, Yi Shiwen's strength was far stronger than many people's initial expectations. One must know that when the Heavenly Taoism had issued their arrest warrant, it was obvious that they had not mentioned that Yi Shiwen possessed such strength. This battle caused many people who were originally eager to make trouble to calm down. Not everyone had such strength. When the news spread out, it reached the ears of the Heavenly Taoism immediately. Sure enough, he still came in. Just like that Lord said, he finally hid in the Heavenly Palace. However, it doesn't matter. Since we already know about his whereabouts, we will soon crush him to death. This time, I, the Eternal Divine Emperor, will personally execute him. I must let everyone know that the dignity of the Heavenly Taoism cannot be violated. An extremely powerful aura floated up and down in the void. There were several other powerful auras around him that were similarly boiling. One of them was an extremely handsome young man. However, his body carried a somewhat mysterious aura, and an extremely cold feeling of danger. If anyone could see him, they would know that he was the strongest among the emperors of the heavenly Taoism who had come in this time. The eternal divine emperor was a peerless figure who had already stepped into the peak of the sixth realm. According to many rumors, he was a terrifying figure who had once fought with the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor without being defeated. Although they weren't figures of the same era, both of them were equally amazing. Moreover, due to the hostile relationship between the Stormy Sea area and the eastern region, both sides had fought many times. Even the terrifying strength of the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor couldn't defeat him. Ha ha ha! The Eternal Divine Emperor has personally taken action. That Yi Shiwen is dead this time. Yes, the rumors are too exaggerated. Yi Shiwen only snatched the corpse of the time beast old ancestor from the hands of the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, who was seriously injured. Eternal Divine Emperor. You could be compared with the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. What are you talking about? The Gung Jin Tiger Emperor is just relying on the fact that he has cultivated for a longer period of time. In terms of strength, the Eternal Divine Emperor is naturally the best. The other emperors of the heavenly Taoism burst into laughter when they heard the Eternal Divine Emperor's words. The heavenly Taoism sect was the leader of many sects in the world. It was a terrifying existence that could faintly challenge the Fortune God dynasty. The emperors of the heavenly Taoism sect naturally had a super strong pride that the emperors of other places didn't have. In their opinion, the emperors of other places couldn't compare with them. Moreover, they were the most outstanding emperors of the heavenly Taoism sect. This time, the heavenly Taoism sect had also put in a lot of effort in order to seize the inheritance of the Pantheon Venerable. They had gathered many experts. If it wasn't for the fact that both sides had agreed not to allow existences above the seventh realm to participate, perhaps even the super big shots of the ninth realm would have appeared here. However, if this was really the case, then they wouldn't have a chance to participate. Humph! It doesn't matter if it's that so-called martial emperor Yi Shiwen or the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. This time, I will defeat and kill both of them. The Eternal Divine Emperor's handsome face revealed a sinister, killing intent. Those two are traitors. I will make a great contribution if I kill both of them, especially the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor. He is a big shot wanted by the Fortune God dynasty. If I can kill him, then I will be able to ascend to the heavens in a single bound. It's not impossible for me to enter the seventh realm. There were countless thoughts in his mind. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, they had already become nothing more than data of contribution in his eyes. As long as he killed both of them, he would have the hope of entering the seventh realm in one fell swoop. He didn't know how many years he had been delayed in the sixth realm. It was so long that even he couldn't remember it. The status difference between the sixth and seventh realm was like heaven and earth. Apart from strength, the difficulty of advancing was also a very important reason. In order to seize the opportunity to enter the seventh realm, he would kill anyone who stood in his way. At the same time, on the endless battlefield of the Pantheon Palace, countless ominous beasts besieged and attacked. A figure casually walked among them. It was unknown how many powerful ominous beasts were killed with a casual strike. It was just a simple spear strike, and an emperor-level creature was pierced on the spot. These valiant creatures saw that even their emperor had been beheaded. They suddenly became frightened and scattered like birds and beasts. The figure didn't intend to continue the chase. He just clapped his hands and put away his spear. Nothing much. No matter how many emperor-level creatures I kill, it won't make me advance any further. Damn it, when will I be able to enter the seventh realm? This figure was about 2 meters tall and looked majestic. He was wearing an iron armor that exuded a blood-red light. Under the cover of the helmet, no one could see his face clearly. They could only see a pair of eyes that exuded an astonishing, murderous aura. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed, and a communication talisman entered his body. A moment later, he opened his eyes and said slowly, "Interesting, someone actually managed to snatch something from the Time Beast Emperor. Time Beast Emperor's Law of Time. It's a pity that I received the news too late. Otherwise, I would have gone to join in the fun. This time, I came here to kill the time Beast Emperor. Hee hee, I let him escape last time. This time, he won't be so lucky, ha ha. The figure laughed out loud. Time Beast Emperor, even you have a day when you get injured. Just as well, I will find you and kill you. It's my turn to sit on the seat of the Fortune God Dynasty's great figure. After saying that, the figure took a step forward and disappeared from the world. He headed directly in the direction of the time Beast Emperor. At the same time, one powerful existence after another received the news. Some wanted to kill the time Beast Emperor in exchange for the Fortune God Dynasty's reward, while others learned that Yishiwen had obtained the time Beast Emperor's corpse. One by one, they began to search for Yishiwen's traces. Yishiwen naturally didn't know that the matter of him snatching the time Beast Emperor's corpse from the hands of the time Beast Emperor had already caused an uproar in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. At this time, he had already entered closed-door training and began to absorb the essence of the time Beast Emperor. Although it looked inconspicuous, it was after all the essence of a Ninth Realm Emperor-level creature. The energy was unimaginably huge. Even Yishiwen could only delay it as much as possible in order to absorb it bit by bit. Time was ticking away in such a tense situation. Chapter 31:10. The last essence of the time Beast Emperor contained an unimaginably huge amount of energy. It was originally left behind to nurture a second reincarnation. But now, it was naturally impossible for him to nurture a second reincarnation. It could only benefit Yishiwen. Yishiwen absorbed the huge amount of energy in the essence of the time Beast Emperor little by little. This essence even contained a lot of the origin of the law of time. These were the concrete manifestations of the time Beast Emperor's understanding of the law of time. Being able to thoroughly understand the origin of the law of time would also be of great benefit to Yishiwen's understanding of the law of time. It would also be of great help to him in repairing the time robe. In particular, the law of time contained in the time robe was even more than Yishiwen's current understanding of the law of time. Although Yishiwen had learned 3,000 martial arts, his understanding of the law of time was still inferior to that of the Time Lord. Now that he had the origin of the law of time, it could save Yishiwen a lot of time. As he absorbed the energy and his understanding of the law of time continued to rise, Yishiwen's strength also increased at an astonishing speed, approaching the peak of the sixth realm. For ordinary people, just understanding the law of time contained in the law of time would take a long time. But for Yishiwen, this was nothing at all. He had the mysterious space and a level 2 dragon vein as a foundation. Naturally, he was successful in every endeavor. He also had enough power of the origin, and his speed of understanding could also keep up. This made his cultivation speed even more shocking, far exceeding the limit that everyone could imagine. Although Yishiwen did not know that the outside world had been stirred up because of him, he would not care even if he knew. Once he finished his closed-door cultivation, he would have nothing to fear in this Pan-Heavenly Palace. As long as there were no masters of the seventh realm appearing, he would be invincible. Time flew like a white steed passing through a crack. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years had passed. A whole 3 years might be nothing to the outside world, but in the Pan-Heavenly Palace, it was a turbulent time. Experts from all sides were moving about. In order to search for the treasures inside the Pan-Heavenly Palace, many experts from different sects fought each other. Whether it was the Fortune Divine Dynasty or the other sects, the two factions were no longer able to maintain a clear division of power. The Pan-Heavenly Palace was not only the resting place of Pan-Tian, but it was also the final layer of the Colossus that Pan-Tian had created. Although it had been attacked and fallen, Pan-Tian had quickly hidden it into the endless void with his great power, so it had not been destroyed. Therefore, there were still many divine items that were difficult to find in the creation realm. Even for an imperial monarch, these divine items were enough to make them salivate, and they had to obtain them even if they had to risk their lives. In a valley in the Pan-Tian Palace, 3 figures appeared outside the valley with astonishing escape lights. There were two men and one woman. The man in the lead was an old man who carried a bit of biting cold and inviolable divine might. Even though he was only wearing simple clothes, he actually possessed the might of a supreme being. Behind him was a man with a dignified appearance. He stood between heaven and earth, and he also seemed to stand out from the crowd. If Yishuan was here, he would discover that these two people were the pair of master and disciple who had been at the city gate when Yishuan had entered Stormwind City. The other person was his old friend, Fairy Tian Miao of the Nine Nether Holy Cult. That's right, the core of this heaven and earth formation is in this valley. I don't know who arranged it, but it's really ingenious. It has absorbed and condensed the surrounding spiritual energy of the world. I'm afraid that there must be something extraordinary inside. The old man's eyes were like torches, and his eyes seemed to be able to see through the entire world. As far as his eyes could see, the formation with the entire valley as its core fell into his eyes. Although he was not proficient in formations, his cultivation had long been erudite. Even if he was not very proficient in it, it did not hinder him from easily seeing the many meanings and origins of this formation. The High Emperor is indeed worthy of being a big shot in the past. These things are really easily seen through by you. Impressive, impressive. Junior admires you, Fairy Tian Miao repeatedly said. Beside her, the outstanding young man looked at Fairy Tian Miao with a bit of admiration in his eyes. At the same time, he also had a somewhat proud expression because of Fairy Tian Miao's words. Because that was his master. The old man just shook his head and said, "This is just a trivial skill. Your Nine Nether Holy Cult has experts who are proficient in this. I'm just displaying my slight skill in front of an expert." Obviously, the old man was not arrogant because he wanted to take credit for it. For a quasi-emperor, this might be regarded as a marvelous skill and ability. However, for a person who had truly stepped into the domain of a supreme emperor, this was just a basic skill. For a person who had stepped into that realm, this was just a basic accomplishment. Fairy Tian Miao naughtily stuck out her tongue with a mischievous and cute look. She did not use her charm technique at all, because she knew very well that charm technique was useless against the person in front of her. Just like that person, using such a level of charm technique in front of them was simply displaying one slight skill in front of an expert. She did not know why, but she thought of that domineering figure again. In the Battle of Heaven's Pole Island, that person had become completely famous. Even the invincible Azura Holy Emperor had suffered a great loss when he encountered him, and in the end, he had even almost died tragically. She knew that he might not be the strongest person in the world, but he might be the strongest person she had ever seen. She could naturally come to a conclusion by comparing the power of the heavenly Tao with her own Nine Nether Holy Cult. The martial emperor who had offended the heavenly Tao was still alive and well, and even the heavenly Tao couldn't do anything to him. One could imagine how strong he was. Beside her, the outstanding young man seemed to be enchanted by her beauty. The old man saw all of this, but he could not help but shake his head. It seemed that Fairy Tian Miao was really a calamity in his disciple's life. If he couldn't see through it on his own, then the matter of attaining the Tao in the future would only be an illusion. How could a person who had attained the Tao be swayed by emotions? Although becoming an emperor didn't mean that he was heartless, if he was led by the nose by emotions, then his future cultivation would be worrying. In the end, it would be even more difficult to see through the barrier. On the other hand, Fairy Tian Miao surprised him. It was not without reason that she was able to make such a name for herself over the years. Compared to Fairy Tian Miao and other peak quasi-emperors in the world, his disciple was still inferior. "Master, what kind of treasure do you think is brewing here?" the outstanding young man asked. "I don't know about that. There should be an almighty being concealing the power of the heavens in the vicinity. Even with my cultivation, I'm unable to calculate it. However, from the looks of this formation, I'm afraid that there really is something extraordinary within." The old man couldn't help but slightly widen his eyes. "But master, why don't we enter the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace?" Now that everyone has entered the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace, I heard that someone has found traces of the Pan Heavenly Palace. Why don't we go in and try our luck? The outstanding young man suggested. The old man shook his head imperceptibly. His disciple was too eager to show off in front of his sweetheart. Was the depths of the Pan Heavenly Palace a good place to go? Fool, is the Pan Heavenly Palace something we can covet? Not to mention what kind of terrifying existence is hiding in the depths of the Pan Heavenly Palace. Even those Emperor Realm experts that came in here aren't people we can deal with. If the Pan Heavenly Palace really falls into our hands, it won't be a blessing. On the contrary, it will be a disaster for us. The day we get our hands on it will be the day of our annihilation. The old man said rudely. We are the representatives of the Fortune Divine Dynasty. Do they have the guts to do that? The outstanding young man retorted, seemingly trying to regain some ground in front of his sweetheart. However, Fairy Tian Miao, who was standing beside him, merely smiled and didn't speak. The old man was angered by Huang Xiaolong's words. What do you know? Our Fortune Divine Dynasty's name might be useful in normal times, but in this Pan Heavenly Palace, in this chaotic battle, even if we die, no one will look into it. Even Emperor Realm existences need to know how to judge the situation and understand the principle that things are easy to break if they are too rigid, not to mention a mere half-step emperor like you. Even if the outstanding young man was unwilling to admit it, he had to admit that in the outside world, a quasi-emperor might be a big shot with the flip of a hand. But in here, they were the quickest cannon fodder to die. They were nothing at all. If one didn't become an emperor, they were just an ant. Originally, a place as dangerous as the Pan Heavenly Palace isn't suitable for us to enter, but your cultivation has been stuck at the quasi-emperor realm for many years without any progress. So Master decided to bring you here to see if there are any opportunities for you to become an emperor in one fell swoop. Only then will you be able to escape from the sea of suffering and ascend to the heavens. The old man had no choice but to reveal his purpose. The outstanding young man was touched by the old man's words, and he knew that his master was doing this for his own good. Otherwise, based on his master's situation, there was no need for him to take such a risk. Fairy Tian Miao looked at the two of them. She had the same thought. If they could find an opportunity inside, perhaps they could really reach the heavens in a single bound. How could it be so easy to cultivate to become an emperor? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. TSK. How touching, the deep relationship between master and disciple. A mocking voice sounded from behind the trio. Chapter 3111. TSK, how touching. Master and disciple have such a deep relationship. A playful voice came from behind the trio. The sudden appearance of this voice was completely out of the trio's expectations and gave them a fright. The three of them quickly turned around, only to see a figure with an extremely tyrannical aura appear before them. It was a middle-aged man in a white robe with a playful smile on his face. Although he was in human form, Fairy Tian Miao could tell that this person was a foreign life form. Moreover, he was an emperor-level life form. It was not difficult to judge. Even with her peak quasi-emperor cultivation base, she still felt that this person was unfathomable. Only emperor-level life forms and emperor-level life forms couldn't see through him. Moreover, this person's body exuded strong fluctuations of divine ability, unlike those emperor-level life forms which exuded fluctuations of loss. Many tyrannical emperor-level life forms could completely merge with the void, but emperor-level life forms were different. The stronger the divine ability they cultivated, the more obvious their presence was. Therefore, under such circumstances, it was easier for them to be recognized. An emperor-class life form had silently appeared behind them. One could imagine how terrifying it would be. Based on the grudge between the Fortune God dynasty and foreign life forms, they would kill each other's experts if they met them. Not to mention this person who had obviously come with a premeditated plan. It's you, the Seventh Moon Emperor. The old man recognized the identity of the person in front of him almost immediately. His eyes were filled with deep-rooted hatred. He had thought that he could forget it, but now he remembered it almost immediately. All these years, he couldn't even maintain his emperor-level cultivation base because he had been seriously injured. And the person who injured him was none other than the 7th Moon Emperor. The 7th Moon Emperor, the Moon Clan's Moon Emperor. Fairy Tian Miao's eyes widened. Her holy cult didn't have a foothold in the eastern region, so they didn't have the most detailed information. But they still knew the existence of the incomparably powerful Moon Clan. It was rumored that the birth of this clan was related to the moon, and they were born with the ability to cultivate spirit techniques related to the moon. They were one of the strongest forces in the Tempest Sea region, and their status was almost equivalent to the 9 Nether cult status in the Fortune God dynasty, perhaps even higher. In the Moon Clan, there is no doubt that the Moon Empress was the peak existence, except for the legendary Moon Lord, who no one knew whether he was still alive or not. The Moon Empress should be the most powerful person in the clan. In an instant, a lot of information flashed through her mind. Since she dared to follow this pair of master and disciple, it was naturally impossible for her to not have the slightest understanding of them. In truth, this old man looked inconspicuous, but many years ago, he was a peerless general of the Fortune Divine Dynasty, a subordinate of the Battle Emperor. Later, he was transferred to Stormwind City to guard it. Once, foreign creatures attacked Stormwind City, wanting to completely uproot Stormwind City, the nail of the Fortune Divine Dynasty in the Tempest Sea region. As a result, a great war broke out between the two sides. Because that war happened too long ago, she didn't know many details about it. Instead, she only knew that from then on, the old man was unable to recover from that setback. From the former city lord of the Tempest Sea region, he became an existence that guarded the city gates. And in that war, it was said that his opponent was someone from the Moon Clan. If that was the case, it could be the 7th Moon Emperor in front of her. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt a chill run down her back. This was an extremely powerful emperor of the foreign creatures. With a wave of his hand, he could even kill them all. I didn't expect you to still remember me, smelly old man. Mountains and rivers meet again. You've been a coward for so many years, hiding in Stormwind City and not daring to come out. Even if I wanted to find a chance to kill you, I didn't have a chance. Now, I've finally found a chance. The 7th Moon Emperor's face was a bit playful, but also a bit ferocious as he spoke. 7th Moon Emperor, you've already caused my master to lose his emperor's fruit of the way. What more do you want? The outstanding young man immediately stepped forward and said angrily, "Back off." The old man hurriedly rebuked. His expression was extremely cold. No one knew better than him how terrifying this person in front of him was. When he was at his peak, he ended up like this. Now that he had encountered this person, it was easy to imagine what kind of situation he would be in. What more do I want? What more do I want? I want his life. If it weren't for the fact that he self-detonated the origin of the Great Path and severely injured me, leaving behind a Tao wound that I still can't recover from even now, and my cultivation has also regressed greatly, I would have become an invincible giant long ago. Don't you think this is a big grudge? The 7th Moon Emperor laughed viciously, and the aura on his body gradually surged. The aura that flowed out of his body was like endless moonlight, and the terrifying aura locked onto the three of them. In particular, Fairy Tian Miao and the young man who stood out from the crowd felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on them. It was a kind of terrifying pressure that only belonged to an emperor, and it made them feel terrified. After all, a quasi-emperor was only a quasi-emperor, and he was still incomparable to an emperor. Even if a little bit of his aura leaked out, it would be fatal to them. I've been following you for some time now. It's a pity that you're old. You're no longer the same as you were back then. I can't believe that you didn't realize that you're all going to die today. The 7th Moon Emperor laughed loudly. The three of them didn't expect that the situation would take a turn for the worse under such circumstances. The joy of finding the treasure suddenly turned into the danger of being killed. I'll hold him back. You too, hurry up and leave. The old man opened his eyes, and a powerful aura also spread out from his body, shooting straight into the sky. Although it was undoubtedly much weaker than the 7th Moon Emperor's aura, there was no doubt that it was indeed the aura of an emperor. Although he couldn't even keep the fruit of the way of an emperor, he was still an emperor in the past, after all. He could forcibly borrow the fruit of the way of the past for a short period of time, and he could still put up a desperate fight. Master! The outstanding young man couldn't help but cry out in grief. He already understood that staying behind to hold off the seventh Moon Emperor would almost certainly lead to death. There was no other possibility. At this moment, endless grief and indignation spread out in his heart. At this moment, he truly understood the importance of power. If he was already at the level of an emperor, then none of this would have happened. All of this was because he was too weak. Hurry up and leave. With your level of cultivation, even if you stay behind, what can you do? The old man said coldly. You and Fairy Tian Meow should hurry up and leave. The two of you can't even block one attack from him, so there's no point in staying behind. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man looked at the seventh Moon Emperor and said, Seventh Moon Emperor, your cultivation was already at the peak of the sixth realm. However, after so many years, it seems like you haven't improved at all. Conversely, your cultivation has fallen by quite a bit. Now, let me see exactly how many levels of cultivation you have left. Endless chains of laws instantly erupted from the old man's body. Boundless waves of Tao wrapped around him, like a huge cocoon, and all the spirit chi in the world was sucked into it. Whoosh! The old man instantly flew out, and in an instant his entire body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the seventh Moon Emperor. With a terrifying force, he directly threw a punch at the seventh Moon Emperor. Small tricks. You're still far from what you used to be. The seventh Moon Emperor grinned viciously. What the old man mentioned just now was the thing that saddened him the most. He was originally at the peak of the sixth realm, and he was almost about to step into the seventh realm. However, compared to before, he had not made any progress at all. In fact, he had even regressed a lot, and the root cause of all of this was the battle with the old man. In the face of the old man's terrifying attack, the seventh Moon Emperor did not dodge at all. Similarly, he slapped his palm down forcefully, and it collided with the old man on the spot. Boom! A terrifying sound of collision was heard. All kinds of laws danced wildly, and the terrifying divine light was incomparably dazzling. In an instant, it turned into a terrifying shock wave that rushed in all directions. Puffed, puffed. The outstanding young man and Fairy Tian Meow, who did not even have time to dodge, were directly sent flying, and they both spat out a mouthful of blood. There was a hint of terror in the eyes of both of them that only the other understood. To others, experiencing the terrifying battle of sovereign emperors at such a close distance was perhaps a rare opportunity that was only heard of in legends. However, at that moment, both of them only felt that death was approaching. It was so urgent that if the old man had not dispersed much of the power of the shock wave for them just now, they would probably have been blasted to death on the spot. There would have been no exceptions. Hurry up and leave. At that moment, a fierce shout was heard from the center of the explosion, and a figure was immediately sent flying. The two of them saw that the old man's entire arm was covered in blood, and his chest had been struck by a palm at some point. There was a shocking dent on his chest, and it seemed as if his entire chest was about to explode. It was obvious that he had suffered a great deal in the collision just now, and he had almost been beaten to death. At that moment, both of them felt as if they had just woken up from a dream. Although the outstanding young man was filled with grief and anger, he had no choice but to fly into the distance. Trying to leave? The seventh Moon Emperor grinned viciously, and he was about to attack the two of them. Suddenly, an extremely powerful aura came from the valley, and an extremely cold voice was heard. Leave the valley at once or die. Chapter 31:12. Leave the valley quickly or die. A loud shout came from the depths of the valley. The old man and the seventh Moon Emperor were startled. It was not that the voice contained some sort of attack. However, there was actually a person hiding in the valley right under their noses, and they hadn't discovered him. How was this possible? The seventh Moon Emperor was a genuine Emperor Lord. Although the old man had lost his Emperor Lord's fruit of way, He could still restore his Emperor Lord's strength in a short period of time. It was just that he would have to pay a high price afterwards. However, someone was able to hide right under their noses without being discovered. The two of them were immediately shocked. Only one person revealed an expression of surprise when she heard this voice. It was Fairy Tian Meow. That was because she immediately remembered that she had once heard this voice. It was unique. She couldn't mistake it for someone else. It was Yi Shiwen. She might have been a bit resistant before, but now she was pleasantly surprised when she heard Yi Shiwen's voice again. Yi Shiwen's appearance was no different from a life-saving straw for him. "Fellow Taoist, we didn't mean to disturb your cultivation," the old man hurriedly said. It didn't matter who the other party was. Whether it was an Emperor Lord or an Emperor-level creature, he couldn't afford to provoke them at the moment. He had already offended the 7th Moon Emperor and was in a dangerous situation. If he offended another one, then he would really be dead. There would be no way for him to survive. On the other hand, the 7th Moon Emperor had a bewildered look on his face. He seemed to be thinking about something. "Fellow Taoist, this is a personal grudge between me and this old man. I hope you won't meddle in other people's business," the 7th Moon Emperor said in an extremely tough manner after a slight hesitation. "Meddle in other people's business? I don't care what you plan to do. Get out of the valley or die." Yi Shiwen's cold voice came out. It seemed that he didn't want to give the 7th Moon Emperor any face. The 7th Moon King's expression was a bit cold. He coldly said, "I don't want to be your enemy. However, if you insist on doing this, then don't blame me for being impolite. I would like to see what kind of thing is playing tricks here." Although he was a bit afraid at first, it soon disappeared without a trace. After all, he was an invincible Emperor-level creature. With his strength, he didn't need to be afraid of anyone. Scram! Yi Shiwen only had one word to reply to the 7th Moon Emperor's unyielding reply, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. The 7th Moon Emperor said coldly. His entire body was radiating moonlight. It was as if a bright moon was slowly rising into the sky. His entire body was like a ball of light that pierced through the sky and headed straight for the center of the valley. Boundless ripples of laws surged from his body. He actually wanted to destroy the valley in one fell swoop and capture the guy who had been playing tricks on him. At that moment, an unimaginable wave swept through the sky at a speed that surpassed the limits of the world, and it instantly attacked the 7th Moon Emperor. Bang! The 7th Moon King raised his hand to block the fatal attack. Although the attack did not hurt him, it did stop him from charging forward. Insignificant tricks. Is this all you've got? The 7th Moon Emperor was unmoved. If this is all you've got, and you still want to meddle in other people's business, you really don't know how high the sky is. As soon as the 7th Moon Emperor finished speaking, a figure slowly appeared before the crowd. He was dressed in a green robe, and his body exuded a mighty aura that seemed to look down on the world. The heaven and earth matrix in the entire valley seemed to be revolving around him, and the chi of the world also began to fluctuate violently. It really is a martial emperor. Fairy Tian Meow was instantly overjoyed. Sure enough, she had guessed right. It was indeed martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. The other two also recognized Yi Shiwen immediately. Back then, because of Yi Shiwen's question, this pair of master and disciple had a conversation. The outstanding young man was a bit angry at that time, so he naturally remembered it deeply in his heart. How could he not remember? However, at this time, he naturally did not feel angry at all. On the contrary, he only felt overjoyed. No matter what, Yi Shiwen's appearance at this time was much better than the others. At least he was not an emperor-level creature. The Fortune God dynasty and the Outer Domain were too serious. Both sides would fight to the death whenever they met. Except for a small number of people, most of them were enemies. "Oh, it's Martial Emperor," the old man hurriedly said. Although compared to him, Yi Shiwen was a junior. At this time, he was the old man's life-saving straw. Junior greets senior. The outstanding young man also hurriedly saluted. He did not have the courage to speak ill of an emperor. No matter what he thought, he must show enough respect at this time. Yi Shiwen just nodded, looked at the 7th Moon Emperor, and said, "It's not too late to retreat now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." The seventh moon emperor looked at Yi Shiwen with his moon-colored eyes and said with incomparable coldness, "Impolite? I want to see how impolite you can be. Umph, don't think that you are so great just because you snatched something from the gunmetal tiger king. Look at you, you should be in closed-door training. You haven't come out yet. How dare a mere tool spirit stand in front of me? You are really courting death." The seventh moon emperor's words completely exposed Yi Shiwen's identity. This was not Yi Shiwen's real body. It was just the tool spirit of the martial emperor's seal. The two of them were originally one. It was not wrong to say that it was the same person, but it was not Yi Shiwen's real body. The outstanding young man was even more shocked. Such a terrifying existence was not Yi Shiwen's real body. How tyrannical was Yi Shiwen's real body? It was simply unimaginable. The old man just stared at Yi Shiwen, not daring to lower his aura for even a moment. He knew very well how dangerous a fight of this level was. He did not dare to relax even a little bit. However, he was not surprised by this. After all, he had temporarily recovered to the Emperor realm. His vision had long been extraordinary. Naturally, he could see that this was only a tool spirit. However, this tool spirit's aura was equally majestic and terrifying. It was so majestic that it almost made people forget that this was only a tool spirit. It was powerful enough to contend against an ordinary emperor. In terms of strength, it was even stronger than the old man's intelligence. So what? You can still live if you leave now. But you will die when my real body comes out of closed-door training. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He did not care that his identity had been exposed. Your real body still wants to come out of closed-door training. Your main body still wants to come out of seclusion. I heard that you snatched something from the hands of the gunmetal tiger emperor. Now that I think about it, you should be refining it. If that's the case, this should be the crucial moment. No wonder you don't want me to come near you. Ha ha ha. It seems like even the heavens are giving me a helping hand, allowing me to find such an opportunity. See if I don't devour your source and plunder all your fortuitous encounters. The seventh moon emperor's face revealed a somewhat excited expression. After all, he was an emperor-level creature. His brain operated at lightning speed. It did not take him long to guess most of the things that had happened. If it was an ordinary thing, he would naturally not be interested. However, if the other party was also an emperor, then it would be completely different. Under normal circumstances, he might not attack. After all, he was not his peak. However, things were different now. Yi Shiwen was in closed-door training. He was in an unprecedented state of weakness. For a cultivator, if they did not choose a safe place during closed-door training, they might encounter a great disaster. You want to kill me? Yi Shiwen's face revealed a bit of killing intent. It seems that you really want to die. The seventh moon emperor laughed loudly. He did not take Yi Shiwen's threats seriously. In his eyes, Yi Shiwen was just pretending to be calm. It was undoubtedly an extremely dangerous thing to let someone find a place where one was doing closed-door training. The more severe Yi Shiwen's expression was, the more guilty he seemed, and the more excited he became. If he could devour Yi Shiwen's source, then there might be hope for him to restore his cultivation to the peak of the sixth realm. The seventh moon emperor's hair and beard revealed a silver, divine brilliance. His sleeves fluttered in the wind. He was indescribably transcendent and powerful. There was naturally a reason why he had such confidence. His strength was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Whoosh! The seventh moon emperor suddenly leaped out and instantly pounced towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. A mere tool spirit dares to stand in my way? You're courting death. Watch me kill you with one blow. The seventh moon emperor did not take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. Having an emperor weapon spirit was completely different. Buzz! Suddenly, the seal of the martial emperor appeared above Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen used the seal of the martial emperor to protect his body. 3,000 martial principles transformed into countless aura shields and directly fell down. They also transformed into countless terrifying great ways to protect him. At this moment, he seemed to be the center of the entire universe. Bang! The Seventh Moon Emperor's attack directly bombarded the seal of the Martial Emperor. The Seventh Moon Emperor's entire arm directly penetrated the protection of 3,000 martial principles and almost directly attacked Yi Shiwen. In the end, it was stopped. However, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. It was as if he did not see it at all. He backhanded his hand and blasted out a fist of 6 paths of reincarnation, directly towards the Seventh Moon Emperor. The Seventh Moon Emperor reacted very decisively. He almost instantly pulled his arm out and instantly flew thousands of miles away, avoiding the attack range of the fist of 6 paths of reincarnation. This Emperor Seal is not bad. It is suitable to be in my hands and be used by me, the Seventh Moon Emperor said as he stared at the martial Emperor Seal above Yi Shiwen's head. Chapter 31:13. That depends on whether you have the right to take it or not. Yi Shiwen said faintly, "You're about to die, yet you're still thinking about other people's things. It seems that God has sent you here to kill you." "Ha ha! This Emperor Seal is mine. Your origin and your adventure are also mine." The Seventh Moon Emperor laughed. His smile was very cold. He had truly sublimated. The killing intent in his heart spread out, and it was difficult to suppress it. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out, and the Seventh Moon Emperor's entire body exploded, revealing a vast expanse of chaos. His figure stepped on a beam of moonlight, and he instantly pounced on Yi Shiwen with a dragon rise and phoenix fall. He instantly arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. He suddenly attacked. The way he attacked was very elegant, and it was also very fast. Every attack of his was destructive. His speed had reached the limit. The law of light was vividly reflected in his body. With one attack, endless divine power was sent out. It was so strong that it could destroy the world with one attack. Not far away, the old man quickly retreated to Fairy Tian Miao and the Seventh Moon Emperor's side. He opened up his inner world to protect them. Under such fluctuations, it was not easy for them to protect themselves. Bang! The attack directly hit the Emperor's seal. The 3,000 martial arts that were used to protect the Seventh Moon Emperor's body were directly penetrated. Although the Seventh Moon Emperor's strength had decreased, the comprehension and skills that he had left behind in the past were still there. This attack displayed an extremely high level. It was almost no less than that of the Lord of the Nirvana realm and the others. A sound like metal colliding was heard. The Seventh Moon Emperor's palm even left a faint mark on the Emperor's seal. Although the mark was quickly repaired, it was still shocking enough. Under this terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen was also forced to retreat again and again. He was sent flying by that terrifying power. With his strength, he could compete with ordinary sovereign emperors. However, he was almost unable to withstand this attack. If he had not used all his skills at the critical moment, he would have been seriously injured by this attack. This was a peerless and powerful enemy. Yi Shiwen could only rely on the tool spirit to resist the Seventh Moon Emperor's attack. His chances of winning were not high. However, Yi Shiwen didn't show the slightest sign of weakness. He moved almost as soon as the Seventh Moon Emperor's attack fell. The wings of time unfolded behind him. He and his original body were two sides of the same coin, so he naturally knew all the martial arts that his original body knew. Naturally, he could use the wings of time easily. It was just a matter of the depth of his cultivation. Yi Shiwen's feet emitted rays of light that covered the entire sky. His entire body evolved into countless, extremely dazzling rays of light. Each of these dazzling rays of light was an extremely powerful attacking method. All kinds of magical power techniques had emerged thoroughly. He raised his speed to the peak as well. He activated the martial Emperor Seal in his left hand and the 6 paths of reincarnation fist in his right hand, attacking with all his might. The Seventh Moon Emperor was not angry. Instead, he laughed and went up to meet the Seventh Moon Emperor. Bang! This was an intense clash that was rarely seen since ancient times. It was extremely rare to see a battle between an Imperial Lord and a Tao artifact spirit. Puff! Yi Shiwen coughed up blood again, and his entire body was sent flying. The seventh Moon Emperor's palm landed on his chest, and a huge hole appeared in his chest. However, no blood sprayed out. Instead, countless spirit energies and the divine chains of rules that entangled him instantly collapsed. After all, he was a tool spirit, and he was condensed from a tool spirit. He didn't have a physical body. He only had a spiritual body. Yi Shiwen had suffered a big loss in this fight. You're just a tool spirit after all. Your original body is indeed powerful. Even a tool spirit can contend against an imperial lord. However, you're not your original body. Even a Tao artifact can't compare to an imperial lord's methods. If you don't become an emperor, you'll forever be an ant. The seventh Moon Emperor sneered. His smile was extremely cold, and he taunted Yi Shiwen as he attacked. You're indeed powerful, but in the end, all you can do is slightly delay the time of your death. Endless spirit energies were being absorbed from Yi Shiwen's body, and they were replenished. Yi Shiwen didn't show the slightest bit of emotion in the face of the seventh Moon Emperor's tyrannical strength. It was as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. You're still so stubborn at a time like this. The seventh Moon Emperor's expression was cold, but he soon noticed that something was wrong. The spirit energies in the world were gathering toward the center of the valley at an astonishing speed. From afar, it looked as if the spirit energies had condensed into a huge cocoon. It was thousands of miles tall and hundreds of miles wide. A huge cocoon was taking shape, and it seemed as if some terrifying existence was brewing inside. A sense of oppression gradually appeared in the world. Ordinary people might not be able to sense it, but it was not a problem for experts like them. They could sense things that most people couldn't sense at all. He's coming out of his closed-door training. The seventh Moon Emperor immediately understood that Yi Shiwen's original body was about to come out of his closed-door training. It was obvious that Yi Shiwen's martial emperor seal was stalling for time. It was waiting for the seventh Moon Emperor's seal to attack so that it could deal him a thunderous blow. No matter how confident the seventh Moon Emperor was, it was still rumored that Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the sixth realm. At the very least, he was at the peak of the fifth realm. Such a person was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Are you stalling for time? The seventh Moon Emperor's expression turned ugly for the first time. You finally realized it now. Isn't it a little too late? Yi Shiwen's expression became even more indifferent. If I had let you leave earlier, you might have had a chance to live. But now you're dead meat. Kill. The seventh Moon Emperor roared. I'll kill you before you come out of your closed-door training. The seventh Moon Emperor clearly had no other choice now that he had been forced into such a corner. Divine light burst from his eyes, and he directly launched an attack at Yi Shiwen. He knew that Yi Shiwen couldn't dodge this attack. Otherwise, the seventh Moon Emperor would have broken through the place where his original body was undergoing closed-door training. This was the seventh Moon Emperor's greatest source of confidence. Yi Shiwen couldn't dodge this attack, and he had many options to choose from. Sure enough, it was just as he had guessed. Yi Shiwen didn't dodge this attack. It seemed that both of them had realized that the time was almost up. Yi Shiwen immediately used the martial emperor's seal to protect his body, enveloping himself completely. Although his spirit body was far more tyrannical than the average physical body, he was at a complete disadvantage in this kind of collision. Yi Shiwen's whole body shone, and a powerful aura burst from it to resist the seventh Moon Emperor's attack. Clang! A terrifying attack from the seventh Moon Emperor landed directly on the martial emperor's seal. The martial emperor's seal began to buzz as it withstood a terrifying pressure. The terrifying power blasted directly into it. If it had been an ordinary Taoist tool, it would have exploded on the spot. The martial emperor's seal manifested all kinds of martial arts, which were suppressing this terrifying power and preventing the martial emperor's seal from collapsing. In a normal battle between sovereign emperors, the Taoist tool and the sovereign emperor would work together to share the counterforce of the other's attack. However, the martial emperor's seal could only be resisted by one person alone. The seventh Moon Emperor's attack was truly terrifying. The aftermath of the battle between the two of them was enough to drown the entire universe. If this had happened outside, it was unknown how many continents would have to sink before this battle could be considered over. Boom! The Martial Emperor's seal finally turned this terrifying power into a raging energy wave, which shot straight into the sky. The entire sky was pierced, turning into endless primal chaos that leaked down. This primal chaos was extremely dangerous, and it could even seriously injure a sovereign emperor. The outstanding young man felt his scalp go numb. He had never seen the power of a battle between sovereign emperors of this level. Compared to these sovereign emperors, quasi-emperors like them were really too weak. They were really ants. For the first time, he truly felt what it meant to be an ant. If it wasn't for the protection of his master, any of the aftermath of the battle could completely annihilate him. He wouldn't even have a place to cry. He has become stronger. Fairy Tian Miao's eyes widened, and her beautiful eyes were full of vigor. No matter how terrifying the Seventh Moon Emperor was, he could no longer move her. She was a first-class peak quasi-emperor in the world, and she was determined to become a sovereign emperor. What really shocked her was that Yi Shiwen had become stronger. Compared to the battle on Celestial Pole Island, the current Yi Shiwen was much stronger. Even if he was just a tool spirit, he was probably more powerful than the Azura Holy Emperor back then. She had cultivated to this level, and she felt that every step forward in the quasi-emperor realm was extremely difficult. She had been stuck in this realm for many years, and she had never seen any hope of breaking through. However, Yi Shiwen had actually advanced by leaps and bounds in just a few years. Could it be that cultivation and breakthrough were as simple as eating and drinking to him? Could it be that there was no difficulty at all? Or could it be that according to the information collected by their religion, he might have been injured in the past and was now just recovering his strength? This seemed to be the most likely explanation. Otherwise, the speed of Yi Shiwen's rise would be too astonishing. It would be enough to make people tremble in fear. Boom! 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 Just as Fairy Tian Niao's imagination was running wild, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Seventh Moon Emperor had reached a white-hot stage. Facing the Seventh Moon Emperor, who had already begun to fight desperately, Yi Shiwen was constantly being defeated and seriously injured. If it wasn't for the fact that his body was a spiritual body, and if it was an ordinary body, there was no way he could withstand this. Even so, the battlefield between the two sides was constantly approaching the center of the valley. The Seventh Moon Emperor continued to attack. In order to intercept and kill Yi Shiwen before he came out of closed-door training, the Seventh Moon Emperor had already given his all. He had even begun to burn the source of his body to increase his combat power. Although the tool spirit of the Martial Emperor's seal also possessed the ability to fight against an Emperor, there was still a huge gap between it and the Seventh Moon Emperor. It was constantly being beaten back and sent flying. Bang! The Martial Emperor's seal was sent flying again. The Seventh Moon Emperor was planning to take advantage of this opportunity to pursue and attack. Suddenly, an even more terrifying aura wantonly emerged from the center of the valley, and a figure rushed towards him at lightning speed. Chapter 31:14. With the appearance of this figure, even the heavens and earth prostrated under this powerful aura. A terrifying aura that soared into the sky filled the air. Yi Shiwen, who was sent flying, was also waved by him. He turned into a Martial Emperor seal and fell into his hand. It was Yi Shiwen's supreme body. The Seventh Moon Emperor immediately stopped his pursuit because he knew that the real main character had appeared. From Yi Shiwen's aura, he could tell that this was an extremely terrifying enemy. Yi Shiwen was able to escape from the heavenly Taoism and make such a name for himself. It was not without reason. This is his true body. Immediately, the outstanding young man was shocked. Just now, it wasn't his original body, but the spirit of the Tao treasure had already shocked him so much. Now that his original body had appeared, it brought with it an unimaginable might. Fairy Tian Miao was also extremely shocked. In her opinion, The martial emperor's Seal's Dao tool spirit was already more tyrannical than Yishiwen. Now that Yishiwen's true body had appeared, she completely understood that she had been too naive before. His true body was many times more terrifying than the martial emperor's Seal's Dao tool spirit. The old man's eyes widened, and thousands of thoughts spread in his mind. He had seen Yishiwen once from afar, but Yishiwen was not so terrifying at that time. At that time, Yishiwen was just an ordinary sovereign king. Although he was worth recruiting, it was not necessary to do so. Now, Yishiwen's aura was close to that of a small tycoon. Once he entered that level, he would be an influential figure in the Fortune God dynasty. Even if he did not cross that level, the Fortune God dynasty must recruit him. If they could recruit such a character, the Fortune Divine dynasty's strength would undoubtedly rise again. You are the martial emperor's true body. The seventh moon emperor's face revealed a somewhat serious expression. He was no longer as relaxed and casual as when he faced his Dao tool spirit avatar. There is a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. You could have left just now, but now you will die. Yishiwen said coldly. Martial Emperor, don't be too arrogant. You are very strong, but you are still dreaming if you want to keep me here. There was a hint of fear on the seventh moon emperor's face, but he still had the pride of being an emperor. Martial Emperor, don't be so arrogant. Really? I can't stop you? Yishiwen sneered. Xiao. As soon as Yishiwen's voice fell, an incomparably mysterious great array appeared under his feet. Endless laws of speed manifested, covering the entire world in an instant. Behind him, the wings of time directly unfolded. Yishiwen's figure transformed into an extreme fluctuation that was hard to imagine in this world. It surpassed the extreme speed of this world and directly attacked the seventh moon emperor. The seventh moon emperor hadn't expected that Yishiwen would attack without saying a single word. Therefore, he had been caught off guard. It should be said that Yishiwen's speed was too fast. Even if he had been on guard, it would have been useless. Yishiwen's attack pierced through all the moonlight defense on his body and pressed on his body. Bang! The seventh moon emperor's physical body instantly exploded. He was smashed into pieces by the attack, and his flesh and blood scattered everywhere. Yishiwen's speed was unparalleled. His comprehension of the time law had reached a whole new level in such a long period of time. So, his speed had become even more unparalleled. In fact, it had even affected the stability of time and space when he moved. Peak of the sixth realm. The seventh moon emperor's body reformed in the distance. There was an unimaginable look of horror in his eyes. His opponent was already at the peak of the sixth realm. He had also stepped into this realm not long ago. No, it should be said that although he had also stepped into that limit when he was at his peak, his combat power was nothing compared to Yishiwen. The person in front of him was too terrifying. Even when he was at his peak, he had never seen an existence in this realm who could display such combat power. The old man's eyes were completely wide open. He knew very well how terrifying the peak of the sixth realm was. In the Pan-Heavenly Palace, such a cultivation was definitely enough to sweep away all enemies. It was at least several realms away from the rumored information. When he was fighting with the Shura, Holy Emperor, he had definitely concealed his strength. No wonder the heavenly Taoism couldn't do anything to him. Not only was he strong, but his mind was also unfathomable. Yishiwen did not pursue further. He just looked at the seventh Holy Emperor indifferently. After all, the seventh Holy Emperor was an emperor-level creature. He was already at the peak of the supreme level, so his recovery ability was naturally very amazing. Coupled with his innate magical power, his recovery speed was extremely fast. Even if he was seriously injured by Yishiwen, it would only take a short moment for him to recover. You disappoint me. Is the Moon Emperor of the Moon clan only at this level? Yishiwen said indifferently. His face was filled with endless confidence. No one could be compared to him in this realm. His eyes disdainfully looked at the world. The strength and arrogance of a dignified martial emperor was undoubtedly reflected. Yishiwen, don't be too happy too early. It's just that you've snatched the initiative. The seventh Moon Emperor said, slightly angrily. Yi Shiwen did not take him seriously at all. That kind of attitude was extremely annoying. Is that so? Yi Shiwen attacked again. His speed directly surpassed the speed of light. Even the timeline was disturbed by him. No one had the time to see Yi Shiwen's figure clearly. When the seventh Moon Emperor saw Yi Shiwen again, he saw that Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen pressed his palm into the seventh Moon Emperor's body. Bang! The seventh Moon Emperor's body exploded once again. His shoulder had been pierced by Yi Shiwen's attack, and half of his body had been blasted apart. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. He simply couldn't defend against it. His speed was simply too shocking. The seventh Moon Emperor quickly jumped away. His whole body was shining. There was a secret technique running in his body. He wanted to fight against Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. At the same time, he was too strong. He had forced the seventh Moon Emperor to come out, so he did not dare to hold back. He is too strong. The seventh Moon Emperor is no match for him, the outstanding young man said. Now that things had come to this, even a peak quasi-emperor like him could see that the strength of the seventh Moon Emperor and Yi Shiwen was too far apart. The seventh Moon Emperor was seriously injured with just a casual move. He was unable to fight back at all. They were not on the same level. I must rope such a big shot into our holy cult of Nine Nether. Fairy Tian Miao had such a thought in her mind. It did not dissipate because of the reverence in her heart. Only now did she realize how ridiculous the conditions she used to rope in Yi Shiwen were. No wonder Yi Shiwen refused without even thinking. Such a big shot was already half a step into the ranks of the giants. Using the conditions to rope in an ordinary emperor to rope in her was a problem in itself. A big shot naturally had a price tag for a big shot. The old man beside her had the same thought as her. He had also learned a lot about Yi Shiwen. Under the management of the Fortune God dynasty, there was no one in this world who could completely hide from the Fortune God dynasty's intelligence network. But Yi Shiwen seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. There was only one possibility. He was originally an emperor from another world. Such things were not rare in the long history of the Fortune God dynasty. An emperor with a clean background like this was the best target to rope in. While these people were thinking about all kinds of things, the battle between Yi Shiwen and the seventh Moon Emperor had already entered a white-hot stage in the distance. Yi Shiwen kept attacking. His movements were unusually elegant. His hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. He looked indescribably transcendent. Under Yi Shiwen's powerful attacks, the seventh Moon Emperor was no match for him. His body was constantly being bombarded. Every time, a large half of his body would be smashed into pieces and blood would splatter all over the sky. Compared to Yi Shiwen, the seventh Moon Emperor's strength was far inferior. This situation was similar to the time when the seventh Moon Emperor killed the Martial Emperor's seal's tool spirit. However, the situation was completely reversed. The seventh Moon Emperor originally had the upper hand, but now Yi Shiwen had the upper hand. The situation had been reversed too quickly. Yi Shiwen, don't push me too far. The seventh Moon Emperor was constantly being beaten back, and he kept roaring angrily. So what if I push you too far? I told you to leave just now, and now you want to leave? Yi Shiwen sneered, and his attacks did not stop. During this period of closed-door training, he had successfully advanced to the peak of the sixth realm. Just this alone had completely consumed the time origin of the old ancestor of the time beast that he had plundered previously. Moreover, a lot of the level 2 dragon vein in his body had also been consumed. Originally, it would have taken a lot of time just to advance from the sixth realm to the peak of the sixth realm. In the end, in order to catch up with time, Yi Shiwen used the time fragments and used up the remaining time fragments in one fell swoop. Only then was he able to progress by leaps and bounds in this short period of time. In addition, he had finally mended the time robe. With the time fragments in the old ancestor of the time beast, it had been completely mended. Its power was no less than before, and it was even stronger. It could be said that the current Yi Shiwen's cultivation had truly soared to an unprecedented level. He was becoming stronger with every passing second. Once he found the pill Emperor and obtained the Tai Vitality Gathering Pill, his cultivation would truly be able to step into the seventh realm. He would then become a small tycoon of the seventh realm and an influential figure in the Fortune God dynasty. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen was naturally unscrupulous and attacked at will. Roar! The seventh moon emperor roared again and again. The moonlight laws around his body fluctuated continuously, and it could even be seen with the naked eye. A majestic power surged from his body and directly blasted into the unknown, mysterious existence. It turned into a giant hand, and it seemed to have snatched something from the mysterious existence and returned to his body. Chapter 31:15. As that thing entered the body of the seventh moon emperor, the seventh moon emperor's entire body shone brilliantly, as if he was a shining crystal. He was like the only ruler of the world, and he wanted to kill the strong enemy in front of him immediately. His body was surrounded by terrifying fluctuations of the laws. Countless laws turned into divine chains, firmly protecting him. The strength of the seventh moon emperor increased at an astonishing speed. He gradually rushed into the sixth realm, and even reached the peak of the sixth realm. He actually took back his fruit of the way through the river of time. Although it is only for a while, it is troublesome enough. The old man's expression immediately became serious. No matter what, at this time, he and Yi Shiwen should be considered to be on the same side. His eyes were sharp, and he immediately saw that the seventh moon emperor was also using a magical secret method to take back his former fruit of the way. This method was very similar to the method he used to take back his fruit of the way, but each method was different. But in general, the essence was still the same, so he immediately understood. Took back my former fruit of the way? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. This kind of secret method was not something he had because there was no need for it. He had never encountered a situation where his strength fell sharply like this. So naturally, there was no need for him to develop a similar secret method. Otherwise, with his martial arts, it would not be difficult to create a method that belonged to him. For these invincible figures who had climbed to the peak, taking back their former fruit of the way was indeed a life-saving method. Although it was helpless, it was extremely effective. Yes, Yi Shiwen, I used to be a cultivator at the peak of the sixth realm. In this realm, there is no way you can defeat me. The seventh moon emperor's expression was extremely cold and ferocious, and he hated Yi Shiwen even more. If it was not for Yi Shiwen, would he have used such a move that would hurt both sides? It should be known that this kind of move seemed to be infinitely powerful, but in reality, it was very dangerous, and one had to pay a huge price. It was not a method that could be used under ordinary circumstances, and it could only be used to save one's life. He wanted to use this move to repel Yi Shiwen, but obviously, he was wrong. So what if you were at the peak of the sixth realm? It just so happens that I have not found a suitable opponent since I came out. Not only was Yi Shiwen not afraid of his cultivation at the peak of the sixth realm, on the contrary, he was also treating him as an opponent to hone his skills. He was also at the peak of the sixth realm, so he wanted to prove that he was the most invincible one. Yi Shiwen's palm shot out. Then it transformed into a seal and fell down with the overturning the sky seal. Then it rumbled towards the seventh moon emperor. Boom! The seal shone with dazzling light and turned into an astonishing celestial light that slammed toward the seventh moon emperor. The seventh moon emperor roared angrily. He had temporarily regained the cultivation of the peak of the sixth realm. He was no longer the same as before. At least, he was not as powerless as before when he faced Yi Shiwen. On his body, the endless moonlight transformed into a feather robe, draping over his body. Yi Shiwen's overturning the sky seal directly fell on the feather clothes on the spot. Immediately, the overturning the sky seal smashed a hole on the feather clothes. Moreover, there were some traces of weathering on the entire feather clothes. It was like an antique that had just been dug out from the ground. All kinds of traces of weathering were densely packed, giving people goosebumps. This is the power of time. The seventh moon emperor's expression immediately changed. His moonlight feather clothes seemed to be a kind of magical power, but in fact it was also a Taoist tool. It did not appear out of thin air. As an emperor-level creature, the ordinary power of time could not leave any traces on his body, let alone on his moonlight feather clothes. But Yi Shiwen did it. Not only did he break his moonlight feather clothes, but he also imprinted the power of time on it. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that in the previous rumors, Yi Shiwen seemed to have seized the old ancestor of the time beast and left. At that time, he did not take it to heart. Even if he had really seized the old ancestor of the time beast, so what? How much could he have comprehended in such a short time? But now that they had just exchanged blows, he realized that he was wrong. Yi Shiwen's understanding of the power of time had truly reached a shocking level. It was very terrifying that he could actually leave mottled traces of time on his moonlight feather clothes. Wait! The seventh moon emperor took a few steps back. Although Yi Shiwen's attack did not send him flying, he had no choice but to retreat again and again to neutralize the terrifying power contained in Yi Shiwen's attack. Yi Shiwen's attack was fast, and the power was terrifying. At this time, he began to regret in his heart. If he was given another chance, he would never be willing to get involved in this. But at this time, he had no other choice. He absolutely could not retreat, because Yi Shiwen had no intention of letting him go. The three people in the distance did not dare to approach at all. The power that the two of them had erupted was already the limit of everyone in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It was the power of the sixth realm. This martial emperor is really amazing. There are not many people who can use the power of time to this extent since ancient times. The old man's eyes were as sharp as a knife, and he could see through many things. Although his skills were no longer there, his experience was still there. Naturally, he was very clear that when one reached the Emperor realm, he would be a peerless hero who had walked the most unique path of their generation. They had already begun to come into contact with the domain of time. But that was only the domain of time. Everyone's understanding of the domain of time was also different. In fact, most people only had a slight understanding of it. It was impossible for them to give up their own way to study the way of time. Based on his many years of experience, there were not many people who could compare to Yi Shiwen's level of mastery. Given Yi Shiwen's situation, it was indeed very shocking. In fact, he was even interested in the world that Yi Shiwen was born in. It should be known that not all worlds could give birth to emperors. That was only possible if the laws were complete. Moreover, the worlds that could give birth to emperors were usually emperors of the first realm. As far as the Fortune God dynasty knew, there were only a few emperors who were as powerful as Yi Shiwen. In the distance, Yi Shiwen continued to attack. The seventh moon emperor had already climbed to the limit. He threw out all kinds of laws and magical powers like they were free, hoping to stop Yi Shiwen. Every pore of his was releasing the aura of the laws. But it was useless. Yi Shiwen had extreme speed, and his attack method was even more amazing. He directly shattered the magical powers and laws that were bombarded towards him. He did not show any weakness at all. Compared to the hysterical seventh moon emperor, Yi Shiwen's attack was undoubtedly much more elegant. It was as if he had transformed into a 1,000-armed Guanyin, shattering the world. It was as if he had returned to the era when chaos was first created. All kinds of terrifying attacks rained down. The seventh moon emperor coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The moonlight feather robe on his body was densely covered in cracks and traces of time. Such an intense battle broke out in an instant. It was unknown whether they had exchanged hundreds or thousands of blows. Yi Shiwen was always calm and unhurried. He completely suppressed the seventh moon emperor and did not care about his counterattacks at all. The seventh moon emperor was also like a deflated balloon. After his combat power soared to the limit, it slowly began to decline. He had used some kind of secret technique to stimulate the potential of his life to retrieve the fruit of Wei from before. However, this kind of secret technique could not be used forever. After using it for a certain period of time, it would quickly decline, and his combat power would become increasingly weak. But no matter what he did, he could not escape from Yi Shiwen's attack range. Yi Shiwen's attacks seemed ordinary, but they always locked onto him and sealed off all the escape routes. Every attack could make him vomit blood. He could see that Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry to attack. He was well aware of the weakness of this kind of secret technique. It could not be used for a long time. Sooner or later, it would completely disappear. After that, not only would his combat power decline, but it would also decline to a terrifying level. After all, doing this would hurt the origin of the Great Path. Death was not something that could be taken lightly, but waiting for death like this was truly terrifying. I'll fight you to the death. After being forced into a desperate situation by Yi Shiwen, the Seventh Moon Emperor was already on the verge of a mental breakdown. He was going to fight with his life on the line. An unimaginable power surged out of the Seventh Moon Emperor's body. He gathered all the martial power in his body and launched a fatal attack. He wanted to fight for life in the face of death. This majestic power transformed into an astonishing torrent of energy and directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. This was a terrifying attack that would shock even a peak level 6 cultivator. It was unknown how many mystical abilities and laws were contained in this torrent. The essence of his entire life was condensed in this attack, so it was naturally terrifying. You're courting death. Yi Shiwen smiled indifferently. He did not move at all. He just slapped the torrent of energy with his palm. Bang! The entire torrent of energy was slapped on the spot. The collision between both sides created extremely terrifying waves that spread in all directions. Then, an even more terrifying scene took place. Yi Shiwen's big hand grabbed down and directly grabbed and extinguished this torrent of energy. This terrifying attack that had gathered the power of the Seventh Moon Emperor had been easily extinguished by Yi Shiwen. Impossible! The Seventh Moon Emperor was completely shocked and couldn't believe it. His all-out attack couldn't even hurt Yi Shiwen a little. Don't you understand? The gap between you and me is like the gap between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen's cold voice came. His figure suddenly appeared on the spot, like a flying immortal. He directly punched out 6 paths of reincarnation, suppressing the Seventh Moon Emperor on the spot. Bang! The Seventh Moon Emperor, who had already exhausted all his martial power, could not resist at all. He screamed and was killed by the punch. Chapter 31:16. The Seventh Moon Emperor was killed by Yi Shiwen with a single punch. None of the other 3 had any doubts about this result. Yi Shiwen had completely crushed the Seventh Moon Emperor. The Seventh Moon Emperor was not a match for him at all. Therefore, they had no doubts about Yi Shiwen's final victory. However, the fact that Yi Shiwen could easily kill the Seventh Moon Emperor had completely subverted their worldview. In particular, their worldview about how difficult it was to kill an emperor had been completely subverted by Yi Shiwen. Even an emperor was not truly immortal. It was just that they had not met someone who could kill them yet. Yi Shiwen had just killed the Seventh Moon Emperor and collected his corpse. The other 3 hurriedly came over to thank him. "Thank you for your help, Taoism friend," said the old man. "Thank you for your help, senior," said the outstanding young man and Tian Miao Fairy. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, "No need to stand on ceremony." He did not want to intervene in this matter. After all, he had reached a critical point in his cultivation. Although he would not fail at the last step, like when he was breaking through to the next realm, he would still suffer a great loss. Therefore, Yi Shiwen didn't want to intervene. However, both of them had unleashed the battle prowess of an emperor lord. This had seriously affected the efficiency of the Lingqi absorption of the great array he had previously arranged. It had even affected his comprehension of the Great Way. This had finally forced him to come out. "Taoism friend, your rapid progress in cultivation is really amazing," said the old man with a sigh. The old man sighed and said, "Compared to Yi Shiwen, who was courageous and diligent, he was already old and frail. This was undoubtedly an extremely cruel punishment for a person who used to be a supreme expert of the world. Taoism friend, you flatter me." Yi Shiwen faintly smiled, but I don't know why Daoist friend is here. I'm sorry to say this. I didn't know that this was fellow Daoist's place of seclusion. I thought that some precious treasure was about to appear, so I came to try my luck. Who would have thought that I would be attacked and brought trouble to fellow Daoist? I'm really sorry that fellow Daoist almost failed at the last step. The old man also had an embarrassed expression on his face. In any case, he had attracted a powerful enemy for Yi Shiwen. Although the Seventh Moon Emperor did not cause any trouble for Yi Shiwen in the end, he would undoubtedly hate Yi Shiwen if he had caused any trouble. To Sovereign Emperor experts, there was no greater grudge than someone hindering their progress in cultivation. Especially for an imperial lord, every step forward was extremely difficult. As a former emperor, he knew this very well. Yi Shiwen slightly smiled. After all, he didn't cause any trouble in the end. So, he was too lazy to pursue this matter. Moreover, harvesting the corpse of an emperor-level life form was already a good harvest. However, fellow Daoist, I'm surprised that you're still here and haven't entered the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. The old man said, "What's wrong? Has everyone entered the depths of the Pan-Heavenly Palace?" Yi Shiwen asked. During this period of time, he had been in closed-door cultivation and hadn't paid much attention to the news around him. So fellow Daoist didn't know? That's right, fellow Daoist has been in seclusion all this time. So, it's very normal that you don't know. The old man nodded in realization. Yi Shiwen had been in closed-door training during this time. So, it was normal that he didn't know. It is said that some time ago, someone found traces of the Pantheon Palace in the depths of this world. The old man did not hide anything and quickly told him what he knew. Now, many Emperor Lords have gone to the depths of the Pantheon Palace world. They all want to find the true inheritance of the Pantheon Palace. The old man continued, "Only people like us who know our own limits and know that it won't fall into our hands in the end didn't go and join in the fun. Pantheon Palace." Yi Shiwen's eyes burst with brilliance. No wonder everyone went to the depths of the Pantheon Palace world. It turned out that the Pantheon Palace had appeared. In this Pantheon Palace world, the most important thing was the Pantheon Palace. After all, this Pantheon Palace was related to the inheritance of the Pantheon Emperor. In particular, many Emperor-level life forms wanted to know the method that the Pantheon Emperor used to cut off his own Tao, reshape his Tao body, and finally become a supreme heavenly lord. After all, this was related to their future. As for the other Emperor Lords, the fact that the Pantheon Heavenly Venerate had been able to enter the supreme Heavenly Venerate realm would be a great reference for them. Moreover, the Pantheon Palace itself was an artifact that had been difficult to find since ancient times. If they could obtain the Pantheon Palace, they would undoubtedly have a great say in the creation realm. It could be said that the vast majority of people came for the Pantheon Palace. As for the previous time Beast Emperor Ancestor and so on, they were simply a bonus. Even Yi Shiwen was excited when he heard this news. "Thank you for telling me. It seems that I missed a lot of things during my closed-door training." Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, "I can't. I don't know how to repay you for saving my life just now. This is just a piece of news that everyone knows. It's not a big deal." The old man quickly said. Yi Shiwen thought for a while and then said, "If there's nothing else, then I'll leave first." "It's okay. You can leave on your own," the old man said. "Okay." Yi Shiwen nodded. Then he stepped on an escape light that filled the sky and disappeared in front of the three people. The outstanding young man couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The pressure he felt in front of Yi Shiwen was too great. Although Yi Shiwen had never targeted him, but when an ant faced a giant, there was no need for the giant to release his malice. The gap between them was enough to create a terrifying coercion. Fairy Tian Miao's eyes flickered with a complicated light. In the end, she didn't mention her invitation. She was also intimidated by Yi Shiwen's power and didn't know how to mention it. The gap between them was too big. However, she wasn't willing to be at ease. She had to pass the news back and ask the sect to send someone with enough weight to invite him. It would be a pity not to invite such a person back. The old man couldn't help but sigh and said, "Sigh, this martial emperor's future is really limitless. I'm afraid that the heavenly Tao sect won't be able to do anything to him. They might even become his stepping stone. Master, he isn't that powerful. The heavenly Tao sect is the world's #1 sect that can challenge our fortune god dynasty. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen is, can he compare to the heavenly Tao sect? That outstanding young man's tone was somewhat unconvinced. However, he didn't have much confidence. After all, Yi Shiwen's strength was far inferior to his in any case. So, he couldn't comment on such a big shot. Sai, you don't understand. The old man sighed slightly. He just faintly felt that Yi Shiwen's arrival was like the prologue of a new era. After Yi Shiwen bid farewell to the three, he quickly flew towards the depths of the heavenly palace. Along the way, there were many powerful ancient foreign creatures that were dominating the area. However, they were too weak in front of Yi Shiwen. They weren't a match at all. Moreover, Yi Shiwen saw corpses everywhere along the way. It was obvious that the fortune god dynasty and the foreign forces had joined forces to sweep in. The native ancient foreign creatures in the heavenly palace were no match at all. They were annihilated one after another. The world of the Pan-Heavenly Palace was very big. However, he soon approached the center of the world of the Pan-Heavenly Palace without any obstruction due to his cultivation. From afar, he could already sense terrifying auras rising one after another. Many Emperor-level creatures and Emperor-level creatures were fighting against the ancient foreign creatures in the Heavenly Palace. The inheritance of the Heavenly Palace was very profound. In particular, when the Heavenly Lord of the Heavenly Palace dominated the Stormy Sea region, he selected the elites to enter the Heavenly Palace. Therefore, many Emperor-level creatures were born in the Heavenly Palace. Compared to the Emperor-level creatures of the Fortune God dynasty, the probability of the birth of Emperor-level creatures in the foreign domains was greatly related to their bloodline and talent. Therefore, the more powerful the race and bloodline, the more Emperor-level creatures could be born. At this time, some of the camps were already fighting together. It was a chaotic battle. In the depths of the core of the Heavenly Palace, an incomparably huge mountain range floated in the void. It constantly swallowed the spiritual energy of the world and transformed it into the spiritual energy of the 5 elements. This caused the entire mountain range to emit a 5-colored light from afar. A powerful figure directly flew over this mountain peak and landed. On the mountain range, many quasi-emperor and god-king level foreign creatures crawled down. The sky-shaking turtle emperor is back. This person was none other than the sky-shaking turtle emperor who had fought with Yi Shiwen before. However, the expression of this sky-shaking turtle emperor was obviously not very good. This was because in front of him was another ferocious-looking middle-aged man. This middle-aged man's body was emitting a dazzling light. Even though he was on the 5-color mountain range, he did not restrain it. In his divine kingdom, there were many gods chanting ancient scriptures, which contained a terrifying power. Sky-shaking turtle emperor, I heard that you lost to that human emperor called Yi Shiwen. The middle-aged man spoke rudely as soon as he opened his mouth. The sky-shaking turtle emperor's expression became even more unsightly. He said coldly, "Why are you here?" "Why am I here? It's because the old ancestor heard about you and specially sent me here. This time, there can be no mistakes in the matter of seizing the Heavenly Palace. The old ancestor had high hopes for you. Who would have thought that you can't even fight a human? You've really disappointed him." The middle-aged man said coldly, He was just lucky that time. He took advantage of the situation when we were seriously injured by the time beast old ancestor. When I see him again, I will definitely cut him into 8 pieces." The sky-shaking turtle emperor narrowed his eyes and said, "That better be the case. Since I'm here, the 5-prison peak will be under my command. You don't have any objections, right?" Chapter 31:17. As soon as the middle-aged man came up, he seized the command of the 5-prison peak. Although the sky-shaking turtle emperor was angry, there was nothing he could do because he knew how important the sky-shaking turtle emperor was to the Pan-Heavenly Palace. For the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, there was still a long way to go before they could be promoted to the celestial master realm. However, for the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, everything was within reach. Because of this, the orthodoxy of the Pan-Heavenly Palace was so important. It was likely to record the experience of breaking through to the celestial master realm. If this matter was messed up, he did not doubt that the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor would tear him apart. Although he was high and mighty in the sky-shaking Turtle clan and seemed to be one of the few supremes, he knew very well that before the sky-shaking Turtle Patriarch passed away, the sky-shaking Turtle clan and its many subsidiary clans would only have one true ruler. That was the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. The person in front of him was the last disciple of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, Gui Yuan Ba Huang. The battle between the two was not the first or second day. One was the last disciple of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, and the other was the clansman of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. It should have been hard to tell who was the winner since their cultivation was also in the sixth realm. However, because of Yi Shiwen's defeat, there was a clear winner, at least for the time being. This made him hate Yi Shiwen even more. He could not wait for Yi Shiwen to appear immediately and tear him into pieces. I have no opinion. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor could only clench his teeth and say, I know you are unwilling, but it is useless. You're not as good as me after all. After I get the Pan-Heavenly Palace for the Ancestor, it is only a matter of time before I advance to the seventh realm. Gui Yuan Ba Huang did not care about the anger of the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor at all. For him, the two were not on the same level at all. Although they had always been in the same realm, his strength was enough to suppress the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. The things here are not something you can handle. Whether it is the Gung-Jin Tiger Emperor or the Eternal Divine Emperor of Tiandao, they're all at the peak of the sixth realm. You are not their opponent at all. He Jemingei Yuan taunted mercilessly, which made the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor even angrier. However, he knew that He Jemingei Yuan was probably right. Although the gap between the sixth level and the peak of the sixth level was not insurmountable, it was still a huge gap. Fortunately, he has many enemies. The Heavenly Taoism has dispatched the Eternal Divine Emperor to kill him in addition to seizing the Heavenly Palace. We can kill him together to eliminate future troubles. He Jemingei Yuan continued. Also, I've thought about it. That Yi Shiwen dared to provoke us. So he must die. Fortunately, he has many enemies. What? You want to cooperate with the Fortune Divine Dynasty? The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor looked as if he couldn't accept this. After all, the grudge between the Fortune Divine Dynasty and the Outer Heavens domain had long been irreconcilable. Only when one side fell would it end. Why not? We have a common enemy. So what's wrong with joining hands? Moreover, that Yi Shiwen was able to snatch the Time Beast Emperor Ancestor from your hands. He can be regarded as a threat. So, we can't ignore him. We must find a way to get rid of him. He Jemingei Yuan said coldly. All those who obstruct me from seizing the Heavenly Palace must die. Don't worry, we don't need to say it. We just need to form a tacit understanding. The Eternal Divine Emperor has always been unscrupulous. As long as we release a little of our intentions, they will understand. We won't be caught red-handed, and we don't need to worry about those old fellows. How can a person who achieves great things be entangled in trivial matters? The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor clenched his fists. He Jemingei Yuan was simply lecturing him like a subordinate. He didn't take him seriously at all. Even his tone was not restrained at all. However, he was now under the control of others. For him, there was nothing he could do. If he ruined the old ancestors' plans because of this matter, then the consequences would be unimaginable when he returned. Since you're the one making the decision, then you can make the decision. There's no need to ask me. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor flicked his sleeves and directly entered the depths of the Five-Prison Peak to cultivate. The Five-Prison Peak was a magic treasure. At the same time, it was also a sacred place for cultivation. The five elements of spiritual energy were very rich. For aquatic creatures like him, a place with abundant water attributes spiritual energy, was a sacred place for cultivation. Seeing the sky-shaking turtle emperor like this, Hegemen Gui Yuan laughed loudly. Originally, the sky-shaking turtle emperor and he had been competing for many years. The two of them were not fighting for a moment of anger, but for the leadership of the entire group. This was because the emperor-level creatures could not exist forever. Even invincible existence like the sky-shaking turtle old ancestor would die of old age one day. Therefore, there was a replacement among the foreign creatures. The sky-shaking turtle clan itself was a colossus. Not to mention, there were many other clans attached to the sky-shaking turtle clan. Both sides were fighting for this leadership. This was the first time that he had completely suppressed the sky-shaking turtle emperor's temper. Immediately, he felt extremely carefree. So what if he was a member of the sky-shaking turtle emperor's patriarch's clan? In this world, cultivation was still the most important thing. Pass down my order. Find a human emperor called Yi Shiwen. Once you find him, immediately inform the heavenly Taoism. Although Hegemen Gui Yuan also wanted to eliminate Yi Shiwen, he understood the principle of killing with a borrowed knife. Compared to them, the eternal divine emperor wanted to kill Yi Shiwen more. Moreover, both sides were competing for the heavenly palace. Naturally, it was excellent to use this opportunity to make them kill each other. Even if Yi Shiwen was not a match for the eternal divine emperor in the end, it was enough to cause great trouble for the eternal divine emperor. And in the distance, a figure quickly swept past, bringing along endless Gungjin royal energy. Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Hegemen Gui Yuan immediately recognized the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor. Both of them were around the same age. In the past, when the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor was still serving the Fortune God dynasty, both of them had fought more than once. Furthermore, after the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor entered the Stormy Sea region, with their similar cultivation and age, he became the target of comparison for countless people. They had fought countless times in the open and in the dark, but it was difficult to determine the victor. Therefore, he was very familiar with the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. What is he doing here? As soon as Hegemen Gui Yuan's voice fell, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor had already appeared on the Five-Prison Peak. The Five-Prison Peak emitted the power of the five elements in an attempt to suppress the outsider, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. However, it was easily broken by the Gungjin Tiger Emperor. His understanding of the Gungjin Dao had reached a level rarely seen since ancient times. Even a magic treasure like the Five-Prison Peak could not affect him. Gungjin Tiger Emperor, I didn't expect you to come here. What a rare guest. Hegemen Gui Yuan greeted him. Although the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was infamous, Hegemen Gui Yuan was not afraid of him. When the Gungjin Tiger Emperor saw Hegemen Gui Yuan, he was a little surprised. He could not help but say, "Why is it you? Where's the sky-shaking turtle emperor? I have taken over here now. He went down to cultivate. You can look for me if you need anything. I have full authority to handle it," said Hegemen Gui Yuan lightly. "Since you are here, it's just as well." The Gungjin Tiger Emperor said, "The only forces in the outer domain that could be considered powerful here are the two of us. Have you ever thought of joining forces with me? After we drive out the people of the Fortune God dynasty, we can decide the ownership of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. What do you think?" You, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor, actually have a time when you need to find someone to join forces with. It's really not easy. Hegemen Gui Yuan said with a faint smile. His smile contained a hint of ridicule. He had fought with the Gungjin Tiger Emperor many times, but he had never gained the upper hand. How could he not hit the Gungjin Tiger Emperor when he was down? I heard that you've been hunted down by Emperor Li recently. Hegemen Gui Yuan said without any fear. Sure enough, when the Gungjin Tiger Emperor heard this name, his face suddenly changed. After a long time, the Gungjin Tiger Emperor said, "You don't have to be so proud. It's true that I am on the wanted list, but don't forget that you once infiltrated the Fortune God dynasty and slaughtered hundreds of millions of lives in order to cultivate the demonic technique. The people of the Fortune God dynasty still remember this matter. You don't know how many people want to skin you alive. Do you think that Emperor Li will let you go when he sees you?" To a large extent, the opposition between the fortune god dynasty and the creatures of the outer domain was like this. Many of the supernatural powers of the creatures of the outer domain were extremely ferocious and went against the natural order of nature. They would slaughter many lives at the slightest provocation. In the chaotic era of the past, ordinary lives trembled under the rule of these creatures of the outer domain. They could be slaughtered by the tribe at any time. Hegemen Gue Yuan's face changed slightly. He raised his eyebrows and said, "So what? Do you think I'm afraid of him? You may not be able to deal with him alone. Moreover, the eternal divine emperor of the heavenly Tao is also here. If the two of them join forces, do you think we have any hope of seizing the Pan-Heavenly Palace?" The Gungjin Tiger Emperor said calmly. Hegemen Gue Yuan's face suddenly changed. Although he knew that the relationship between the heavenly Tao and the fortune god dynasty wasn't good, it was still easy for them to join forces and drive the creatures of the outer domain out of the game first. If that happened, it would be too late for them to cry. What you said makes sense. That's fine. We can join forces first until the ownership of the Pan-Heavenly Palace is determined. Hegemen Gue Yuan finally realized that he couldn't stop the two of them at the same time. In addition, I want you to join forces with me to kill someone. The Gungjin Tiger Emperor's expression became colder and colder. Who? Hegemen Gue Yuan asked. That human emperor called Yi Shiwen. I want him to die without a burial place. The Gungjin Tiger Emperor said coldly. Chapter 31:18. That human emperor called Yi Shiwen. I want him to die without a burial place. Tiger Emperor Gung Jin said coldly. Tiger Emperor Gung Jin's face was filled with hatred. It was Yi Shiwen who had made him a laughingstock. God knows how many times he had been ridiculed in private. So it's him. Hegemen Gue Yuan said with a slight smile. He did not reveal that he originally wanted to cause trouble for Yi Shiwen. Instead, he wanted Tiger Emperor Gung Jin to owe him a favor. I've heard of it. I didn't expect you to remember it. Others were afraid of Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and did not dare to mention his scars in front of him. I am Hegemen Gue Yuan and do not have such scruples. Humph. No matter what, he's still a big problem. I have fought with him before. Although he is not as strong as us, he is far stronger than an ordinary sixth realm sovereign emperor. If we leave him alone, he will definitely cause big trouble for us. The Gung Metal Tiger King looked slightly displeased, but he didn't act up. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. If they could defeat Eternal Divine Emperor and the others in the end, a war would definitely break out. In order to seize the Heavenly Palace, they were only reluctantly teaming up because of the pressure from Eternal Divine Emperor and Emperor Li. Whether it was Hegemen Gue Yuan or Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, both of them were peerless powerhouses who were only a step away from stepping into the realm of a giant. In the fortune realm, such people could call the wind and summon the rain, and were existences at the level of an ancestor. Naturally, they had supreme pride in their hearts. However, their opponents were also very strong. Emperor Li was one of the most terrifying officials in the Fortune God dynasty. Whenever he took action, few rebels could escape. Eternal Divine Emperor was one of the top emperors in the Heavenly Tao. He had been famous for countless years. Even if the two of them teamed up on the surface, it was enough to put great pressure on Hegemen Gue Yuan and Tiger Emperor Gung Jin. This was the main reason why they teamed up. If there were only the two of them present, they would have already started fighting. How could they have a peaceful conversation? I understand. It's fine if he doesn't show up, but if he does, we'll make him bleed on the spot. I heard that the Eternal Saint Emperor has a mission to kill him. If the Eternal Saint Emperor makes a move, we'll just watch from the side. If the Eternal Saint Emperor doesn't make a move, it won't be difficult for us to kill him with our strength. Hegemen Gue Yuan said indifferently. His gaze had always been on Tiger Emperor Gung Jin and the other two. As for Yi Shiwen, he was not a concern at all. Although a sixth realm sovereign emperor is troublesome, if the two of us work together, we'll have a 90% chance of success. This person is cunning and good at fishing in troubled waters. We need to send more people to prevent him from fishing in troubled waters from afar. the Gung Metal Tiger King repeatedly reminded. His veins were twitching as he thought of this. He had indeed been attacked by Yi Xuan once. Yi Xuan had beaten him until he lost his temper. Originally, he had never worried about such a problem. Even the aureole behind had to be a praying mantis. However, he wasn't a praying mantis. He was an eagle. Wouldn't it be suicidal for the aureole behind the eagle? However, he didn't expect that the aureole behind him wasn't an aureole, but an equally ferocious eagle. This made him lose his footing and become the object of ridicule for countless people. Therefore, he must be very vigilant against such a thing this time. He couldn't let the tragedy of the past happen again. Don't worry, he definitely won't have such a chance. However, Hegemon Emperor Gae Yuan didn't take it to heart. He had enough confidence in himself. Moreover, the key reason why the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was ambushed by Yi Xuan was that the Gungjin Tiger Emperor was seriously injured. If it was in its peak state, how could it have given Yi Xuan an opportunity? Moreover, if he dares to show his face, we don't need to do anything. The Eternal Divine Emperor alone won't let him go. This person had beheaded an emperor of the Heavenly Tao sect before. How can the Heavenly Tao sect let it go? Well, if that's the case, then I won't say anything more. The Gung Metal Tiger King just nodded lightly. Then, he stepped on the Gung Metal energy, and his figure instantly disappeared into the void. Humph! Gue Yuan Ba Huang smiled coldly. He looked at the direction where the Gung Metal Tiger King had disappeared. He was already thinking of many plans in his mind. He wanted to include the Gung Metal Tiger King as well. Then, he would make both sides suffer. Finally, he would reap the benefits. That would be the best. At this time, on the other side, a group of more than a dozen emperors had gathered together. Their divine kingdoms were connected. Countless gods and their divine kingdoms were mobilized everywhere. They were fighting with many foreign creatures in the surroundings. These dozen emperors were in the center of these divine kingdoms, controlling the situation. And in the middle of these dozen emperors, it was none other than the Eternal Divine Emperor. He sat on a cloud bed with his legs crossed. It seemed like he was comprehending the supreme path. Mysterious laws were scattered around his body. Why? Is there still no news of Yi Xuan's whereabouts? The Eternal Divine Emperor said slowly. However, he didn't open his eyes. It seemed like he was still in cultivation. Not yet. It seems like he won't appear. The Emperor said. He also knows his limits. If he hides, he can still live. However, if he wants to fight for the Heavenly Palace, he will really be courting death. I heard that the Gung Metal Tiger King is also looking for him. He is dead meat. Humph. If we can't find him, our trip will be incomplete. I originally planned to kill him before the Heavenly Palace appears to avoid future troubles. The Eternal Divine Emperor said. His tone seemed to be a bit regretful. Let's work together to calculate the time of the Heavenly Palace's appearance. We must be extremely accurate. If we are faster than others, it will be enough to determine the outcome. At this time, the Eternal Divine Emperor also temporarily put Yi Xuan's matter aside. He began to calculate the time of the Heavenly Palace's appearance with the other emperors. Ever since everyone had seen the Heavenly Palace in the depths of the world of the Heavenly Palace, they began to calculate the time of the Heavenly Palace's appearance. Although their cultivation was deep and shallow, and their calculation ability was strong and weak, they basically calculated the time of the Heavenly Palace's appearance. It was nothing more than when it would appear. With everyone's cultivation, they could even calculate the specific time of the appearance of the Heavenly Palace. In a battle of this level, a 1-second lead was enough to determine the outcome. At this time, there was only one person on the scene who was crazily killing. This person was none other than Emperor Li, who had chased after the Gung Metal Tiger King. Emperor Li had become an emperor through the fierce Tao. His whole body was covered with a fierce aura. It seemed as if he was born from the fierce aura. It was said that his original body was born in an extremely fierce place. Therefore, he was very fated with this Tao. The other emperors at the peak of the 6th realm were adjusting their state. They weren't in a hurry to attack. However, he didn't care. He attacked unscrupulously. As long as it was a foreign creature, it wouldn't have a good ending if it fell into his hands. For others, killing foreign creatures was just an instinct. For him, these foreign creatures were a kind of point and a kind of merit. It could be transformed into his strength at any time. To him, killing was a form of improvement, a form of cultivation. It was like the reincarnation of the Shadi. He had enough strength, so he didn't have to worry at all. No matter when the heavenly palace appeared, it couldn't leave him behind. In addition to him, there were many emperors and emperors fighting on the battlefield. They were fighting with the ancient foreign creatures in the heavenly palace. At the same time, they were also fighting with each other. They exchanged each other's blood for merit and seized others' fortuitous encounters. At this time, Yishuan had just arrived at the edge of the battlefield. He didn't know that among the 4 experts at the peak of the 6th realm, 3 had already decided to kill him. If it was someone else, they would have been scared and trembling. However, it was nothing for Yishuan. Even if the 3 parties joined forces, he was not afraid. In the same realm, he was invincible and fearless. Yishuan had just stepped into the edge of the battlefield when he suddenly noticed that someone had seen his figure. The moment they saw him, they immediately fled into the depths of the battlefield. Someone is waiting for me? Yishuan immediately reacted and understood what was going on. Perhaps someone had been waiting for him here for a long time. Yishuan immediately raised his cultivation to the peak, ready to fight at any time. However, the first person who flew toward him was completely out of his expectations. It was none other than Emperor Li. Are you that martial Emperor Yishuan? Emperor Li was the first to arrive in front of Yishuan. There seemed to be a playful expression on his face. However, under the contrast of his expression, it looked very fierce. Yes, Yishuan narrowed his eyes. The person in front of him was actually the strongest expert from the Fortune God dynasty, Emperor Li. In this heavenly palace, he was a powerful figure who could be compared to the Gongjin Tiger Emperor. Although he didn't have any grudges with the Fortune God dynasty, he didn't dare to be careless at this time. If Emperor Li suddenly attacked him, it would be troublesome. A little interesting. How about it? Are you interested in joining the Fortune God dynasty? With your strength, if you enter the Ministry of Justice, you will be a big shot, only below me. Emperor Li said with a smile. Below you? Yishuan raised his eyebrows slightly. Why? Below me? Do you have any questions? Emperor Li didn't get angry. He just revealed a playful smile. Chapter 31:19. Are you trying to recruit me? Yishuan frowned and asked. So what if I am? Emperor Li said with a smile. He put his hands behind his back and stood in the void. It was as if he was the ruler of the world, and the galaxy revolved around him. The more intense the murderous aura on the battlefield, the more nourishing it was for him. He could constantly absorb the murderous aura for his own use. I'm afraid you're not qualified to recruit me. Yishuan smiled faintly. His expression was incomparably arrogant. Oh, then tell me, who is qualified to recruit me? Emperor Li's brows slightly wrinkled, but he wasn't stupid. From the information he had obtained, Yishuan had probably already entered the 6th realm. It was indeed unlikely that such a big shot would be subdued so easily. However, he was also confident. With his strength, he was naturally far more powerful than the average 6th realm. He was not worried that he could not convince Yishuan. No one in the world is qualified to recruit me unless I am willing. Otherwise, no one can force me. Yishuan said faintly. In the myriad world, he was a peerless emperor who could sweep away a region. Even if some other emperors appeared later, no one could be compared to him. For a person like him, he was broad-minded. In the future, he would go straight to the sky to look for the legendary fortune and reproduce the supreme achievements of the legendary founder of the Fortune God dynasty. Ha, ambitious. Ha, you're ambitious. I've heard of you. You're from another world, right? I don't know how you ruled the world in that world, but this is the Fate realm, the true core of the endless world. Here, it's impossible for you to be invincible with your cultivation. If you don't rely on a powerful force, you won't be able to survive well. Emperor Li laughed loudly and did not take it seriously. He had met many powerful emperors from different worlds like Yishuan. These people had long been accustomed to domineering in various worlds. Naturally, they would not easily bow their heads. However, in his opinion, it was not a big deal at all. Even if you want to rely on the Fortune God dynasty, I don't think the Fortune God dynasty only has the Ministry of Justice. Yi Shiwen said, as far as he knew, although the Fortune Divine dynasty unified the outside world and suppressed powerful enemies in all directions, in fact, there were countless forces running amok inside. Not only were there conflicts between the Fortune Divine dynasty and the major sects, but there were also conflicts between the Central Divine dynasty and the local regions. There were even more conflicts between the various major families in the Central Divine dynasty. The Ministry of Justice was just one of the bigger forces, and it could not be considered as covering the sky with one hand. Even if he had to temporarily rely on someone, he had to choose the most powerful one. Interesting, but it's not a good thing to bite off more than you can chew. The human tribe is not a powerful tribe in the Fortune realm. Emperor Li smiled faintly and was not annoyed. Yi Shiwen immediately understood the meaning of Emperor Li's words. Emperor Li thought that Yi Shiwen wanted to stand on his own. It wasn't impossible. However, those people often had an unimaginably powerful clan behind them. With the support of such a clan, it was enough for these sovereign emperors to separate a region and fight against the Fortune God dynasty. However, there were very few who could do this. Just like how not all the major sects and clans dared to challenge the Fortune Divine dynasty like the Heavenly Tao sect, there were only a few among the local races and clans who could cover the sky with one hand. I am who I am. I don't need to rely on external forces. Yi Shiwen said. An idea emerged in his mind. Perhaps after obtaining the Tai soul condensation pill from the Alchemy Emperor, he could go to the human tribe in the Fortune God dynasty. There were many secrets in his heart that he had yet to unravel. There were also humans in the Fortune God dynasty. Was it related to the human tribe in the myriad heavens? Moreover, as far as he knew, there were also human emperors in the myriad heavens who were going to the Fortune God dynasty. Besides Emperor Qin, there were also human emperors who were coming. He also wanted to see if he could meet them. After all, no matter what, they were not only of the same clan, but also from the same hometown. Their relationship was undoubtedly closer than that of others. You have ambition. However, ambition alone is useless. As far as I know, whether it is the Eternal Divine Emperor, the Gung Jin Tiger Emperor, or the newly arrived Gui Yuan Hegemon Emperor, they seem to be looking for you everywhere. When the time comes, the three of them do not need to join forces to kill you. However, as long as you rely on me, the Ministry of Justice of the Fortune God dynasty will naturally be your backer. With me behind you, they will not be able to do anything to you. Emperor Li was incomparably confident. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a hint of arrogance in his eyes. Thank you for your kindness, Emperor Li. However, if you want to recruit me, then forget it. If we form an alliance, then I can't consider it. Yi Shiwen said lightly, there are many treasures in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It is impossible for one person to monopolize it. How about we join forces? You want to join forces with me and form an alliance? Emperor Li did not think that Yi Shiwen would actually say this because he had never had such an idea. An ordinary sixth realm was only an ordinary sixth realm. After all, it could not be compared to the peak of the sixth realm. In his mind, only the Eternal Divine Emperor was qualified to form an alliance with him. As for the other two, they were in the camp of foreign creatures. He would not consider them. Otherwise, even if he obtained the Pan-Heavenly Palace, after leaving, he would inevitably be investigated. A groundless accusation could cause him to be tossed around unbearably. Yes, form an alliance. Yi Shiwen said. He looked at Emperor Li and then said, I know that you may not believe in my strength now. Now, I will show you my strength, and see if it is enough to be your ally. Then come and try, Emperor Li said lightly. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. Since Yi Shiwen dared to say this, he must be confident. Otherwise, who would dare to say such a thing? At this moment, almost in an instant, an astonishing divine radiance turned into a terrifying attack and blasted towards Yi Shiwen's head. It wanted to pierce through his head or directly explode it. Boom! This attack directly turned into a sky full of auspicious radiance and then spread in all directions. It immediately attracted the attention of countless people on the battlefield. Except for the experts in the fierce battle, everyone else noticed the situation here. They did not know what was going on, but it was obvious that the person who was directly blasted should be dead. Who could withstand the terrifying attack of the Emperor Li? However, just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was dead, the multicolored mist dissipated. They saw Yi Shiwen standing quietly in the void. The attack, just now, did not even penetrate his defense. It was directly blocked. In the distance, an Emperor Li suddenly opened his eyes wide because he did not expect that his full-strength attack could not hurt Yi Shiwen at all. It could not even make him waver. How can this be? While he was still in shock, Yi Shiwen, who was still in the distance, suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen simply patted him with his hand. Boom! The Emperor Li was slapped on the spot, and then an even more strange scene happened. His chest that was slapped began to wither, and then, inch by inch, it turned into flying ash and disappeared into the sky. It was as if it had been weathered after hundreds of millions of years. Then, only a blood-curdling scream was heard, and the soul of this Emperor Lord was directly grabbed by Yi Shiwen. Then, this soul didn't make any movements, but it began to age inch by inch, collapsed, and died in front of everyone. All of this took time to describe, but in fact, it happened extremely fast. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. Only Emperor Li, who was present, saw all the movements immediately. The others waited for a while before finally replaying Yi Shiwen's movements. With just one blow, a Third Realm Emperor Li was slapped to death. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. There was a gap of 3 realms between the Third Realm and the Sixth Realm. Not everyone had the strength and ability of Yi Shiwen to escape from the Sixth Realm Emperor Li. This Third Realm Emperor Li wanted to get a reward from heavenly law. He thought that he could delay until the experts of heavenly law came to support him. After all, the distance was not far. For an Emperor Li, it would only take a few breaths of time. However, it was these few breaths of time that took his life. He never thought that he could not even hold on for a few breaths of time. What kind of strange power is this? The Emperor Li destroyed it just like that. Many people opened their mouths wide, especially those Emperor Li and Emperor-level creatures. They only felt a chill on their backs. If the same method was used on them, would they be able to escape? Perhaps there was really no way. The power of time, it's the power of time. It can't be wrong. Someone finally recognized it. If this wasn't the terrifying power of time, then what was it? Moreover, not all Emperor Li and Emperor-level creatures had more or less dabbled in the power of time. On the contrary, this clearly showed that the power of time had been cultivated to an extremely profound level. Even the physical body and spirit of the Emperor Li could not resist the erosion of this power of time. Time had taken away their lives. How is this possible? Someone can comprehend the power of time to this extent. Although everyone knew the answer, they still couldn't believe it. They also knew that the power of time was very terrifying. Apart from the power of time, it was impossible to kill an Emperor Li in one move. Only time was the root of everything. However, the power of time was also very difficult to cultivate. It was simply beyond their understanding. Even Emperor Li was a little surprised. Yi Shiwen's cultivation of the power of time could be described as extremely beautiful. Where is Yi Shiwen? A deep and resounding roar was heard. A figure took the lead, and a Bigfoot stepped down towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 31:20. Where is Yi Shiwen? With a deep roar, a figure took the lead and stomped down on Yi Shiwen with a big foot. This big foot was not a real foot, but a kind of manifestation. It was condensed from the power of heaven and earth. With the power of the Emperor level, it could almost crush a galaxy with one stomp. This was an extremely terrifying power. Endless laws intertwined and condensed into this big foot, trampling on millions of demons. Many people felt their pupils shrink at once. The existence of the Sixth Realm. Many people recognized at once that this terrifying big foot contained the terrifying power of the sixth realm. In the pan-heavenly palace, this was almost the pinnacle existence. Boom! This foot directly stepped on Yi Shiwen's body almost without any hindrance. However, to everyone's surprise, this foot did not seriously injure Yi Shiwen. It directly fell 3 inches away from his body, and then there was no way for it to advance any further. It was as if it was blocked by an invisible force. Clang! Immediately afterward, everyone only heard the sound of a long sword being unsheathed. They only saw that Yi Shiwen had grabbed Endless Sword Aura in his hand. Endless Sword Aura gathered in his hand like a torrent, turning into a shocking sword aura. In an instant, it slashed out a shocking mark, shattering the heaven and earth, and fell on this big foot. Boom! This big foot directly turned into fragments all over the sky with a loud roar, spreading in all directions. Yi Shiwen's strength had been highlighted incisively and vividly when he had destroyed this big foot with just one strike. Stop acting mysterious. Get out here. Yi Shiwen immediately grabbed out with one hand like the hand of God, directly grabbing into the void of the endless void, forcibly tearing the void into 2 halves, revealing the figure of a person. This figure came in a hurry, and before it could even stand firm, it was directly exposed by Yi Shiwen from the void. Wasn't it the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor? The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was still in shock when his magical manifestation was blasted through by Yi Shiwen's blow. It exploded on the spot, and even his figure was grabbed at once. So it's you. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled. Beside him, Emperor Li just watched indifferently. For him, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was only a little troublesome. He wanted to see how Yi Shiwen would deal with it. Yi Shiwen's counterattack was indeed very amazing. Yi Shiwen's strength was indeed more tyrannical than what he knew. However, he was still far from being able to form an alliance with Yi Shiwen. Not everyone was qualified to form an alliance with him. Hand over the time, beast old ancestor, and I'll spare your life. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor's expression was abnormally cold. However, he started to feel slightly anxious. The situation here had attracted the attention of many experts. He wasn't the strongest expert here. Once the others arrived, he wouldn't have the right to speak. Even Emperor Li, who was by Yi Shiwen's side, was enough to make him very afraid. As one of the deputy ministers of the Ministry of Justice, Emperor Li's reputation in the outer domain was illustrious. Moreover, he was well known in the Fortune God dynasty for being a tough person in the outer domain. If Emperor Li were to attack, even he could only flee. As far as he knew, when the Gongjin Tiger Emperor was being chased by Emperor Li, he could only flee when he was seriously injured, let alone the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. That was a peerless shot, Emperor. He wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to look on helplessly as Yi Shiwen was free and unfettered and abandoned the time Beast Emperor ancestor. Spare my life? Do you think you still have the ability to do so? Yi Shiwen sneered and looked at the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. Now, whether you die or not depends on my mood. It seems that you really don't want to accept the toast, only to drink a forfeit. Last time, it was only because we were seriously injured by the time Beast Old Ancestor that you had the space to take advantage of. Do you really think you have that kind of strength? The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor said indifferently. Why don't you try and find out whether I have the ability or not? Under Yi Shiwen's feet, a large formation directly formed. The power of heaven and earth was boiling, and the laws turned into tangible chains, entangling Yi Shiwen's body. Invisible airwaves swept out in circles, and the terrifying aura that belonged to an emperor lord instantly spread out. Many of the sovereign emperors who were paying attention to this area sensed this terrifying aura and immediately felt that it was extremely terrifying, far surpassing their own. How did this martial emperor become so tyrannical? Many people only felt that it was ridiculous, as if their worldview had been completely subverted. They didn't think that Yi Shiwen had made any progress in such a short time. It could only be that he had been hiding his strength from the beginning. His scheming was really unfathomable. It seems that you are courting death, the sky-shaking turtle emperor said indifferently. He suddenly opened his mouth wide, and in an instant, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth turned into a long river, pouring into his mouth. In just a moment, it seemed as if the spiritual energy between heaven and earth had been sucked dry. Emperor monarchs were the biggest thieves in the world, constantly absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth without any intention of giving anything back. Only a place like the Fortune Divine Dynasty could support so many emperor monarchs. No other place could support so many emperor monarchs. This sky-shaking turtle emperor's body emitted a colorful light, which turned into amazing divine power and spread out in all directions. His whole body seemed to be able to crush the world. Boom! In an instant, everything between the heavens and the earth dimmed. The sky-shaking turtle emperor made his move. One of his hands turned into a sparkling and translucent color. Then, he suddenly slapped towards a void. Then, it turned into a terrifying seal, bringing with it the power to overturn rivers and seas, and blasted towards Yishiwen. This seal seemed to overturn the power of heaven and earth, and fiercely suppressed it with infinite terrifying power. Sky-shaking seal, the supreme magical power of the sky-shaking turtle clan. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. The sky-shaking turtle clan's sky-shaking seal was too famous. Once it was used, the world would shake, and it was very terrifying. Previously, when the sky-shaking turtle emperor attacked Yishiwen, he did not use such a move at all, but now he used it all at once. One could imagine how angry he was now. Sky-shaking seal? It's a bit interesting. It just so happens that I also know a seal technique. Let's see who is stronger. Yishiwen was not surprised, but laughed instead. His hands formed a seal, which turned into the seal of the sky-shaking seal. With a rumbling divine light, it directly smashed the sky and directly blasted towards the sky-shaking seal. Yishiwen did not even use the martial emperor's seal, but simply used the seal of the sky-shaking seal to deal with everything. Boom! At this moment, the two seals directly collided with each other, and the sky trembled. Everyone could clearly feel that the entire sky palace was trembling slightly. The power that spread out from the collision of the two was in the form of ripples, and it spread in all directions, bombarding the sky with dense cracks like a spider web. The dazzling light was like a big sun, making people unable to open their eyes. They could only use their spirit to capture the movements of the two. Such a collision stalemate only lasted for a moment. Yishiwen's sky-shaking seal directly collided with the sky-shaking seal. Many cracks immediately appeared on the sky-shaking seal, and some time models appeared on it, as if it had experienced the passage of time. It was very shocking. Bang! The sky-shaking seal only lasted for a moment under the attack of the sky-shaking seal, and then it instantly collapsed, turning into energy fragments that dissipated in the sky. It collapsed. The gap between the two sides is too big. Many people captured this amazing scene. With their tyrannical strength, they could naturally see that the strength of the two sides was indeed far apart, and the sky-shaking seal simply collapsed upon contact. And this sky-shaking seal directly fell from the void, and it fell towards the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Its momentum did not decrease, and its power was unparalleled. The sky-shaking turtle emperor did not expect that his full blow would collapse upon contact. He was not an opponent at all, and the power of the shock directly shocked his body. At this time, he simply could not care so much, and quickly blasted out another punch, bursting out an amazing immortal light, and went against the sky-shaking seal. Bang! Sure enough, this blow was not an opponent of Yishiwen's sky-shaking seal at all. It only resisted for a moment, and instantly collapsed, and then this blow directly fell on the body of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Dang! On the body of the sky-shaking turtle emperor, a battle armor emerged. This was a peerless treasure armor refined from his own turtle shell, and it emerged at the critical moment to save his life. Puff! The sky-shaking turtle emperor suddenly only felt a surge in his chest, and his internal organs were shaken. His whole body flew out in an instant, and his originally unbreakable battle armor actually showed traces of cracks. For a moment, everyone was silent, and everyone was shocked by Yi Shiwen. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact it was only a moment. Originally, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor came in a menacing manner, making people think how strong he was, but in fact, under Yi Shiwen's offensive, he could not even resist one move. Was the difference in strength between the two sides so big? Yi Shiwen is really too strong. No wonder the Third Realm Sovereign Emperor could not even withstand one move from him and was instantly killed. They are not on the same level at all. This Yi Shiwen has not only cultivated the law of time to a superb level, but his own physical cultivation is also unparalleled. Even when Emperor Li saw this scene, his eyes were shining with the light of wisdom, and no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. Can't withstand a single blow, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Chapter 31:21. Can't even withstand a single blow. Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent. He already had a well-thought-out plan. Hearing Yi Shiwen's words, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor felt like vomiting blood. Previously, when he wanted to deal with Yi Shiwen was only at the 5th realm, and he already felt that it was difficult to deal with him. But compared to now, it was simply like heaven and earth. How much time did it take to advance from the peak of the 5th realm to the peak of the 6th realm? Was his breakthrough as simple as eating and drinking? At this time, his heart was filled with incomparable remorse. If he had hardened his heart and eradicated Yi Shiwen first, he wouldn't have left behind such a big disaster. It was a pity that he had been blinded by greed at that time. He had wanted to seize the time beast old ancestor first. In the end, Yi Shiwen had seized the opportunity. And now, Yi Shiwen's strength was even more terrifying. Under Yi Shiwen's attack, he was defeated in just one blow. This was what really made him despair. Just you wait. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor immediately fled into the distance. He did not intend to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen here, and there was no need to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen. But how could Yi Shiwen give him this opportunity? Want to leave? The demon wings behind Yi Shiwen suddenly spread out, and his whole body seemed to teleport as he directly chased after the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. He directly formed a big foot and stomped on the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor fiercely. Boom! All of this was like a replica of when the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor wanted to trample on Yi Shiwen just now. But compared to the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor just now, Yi Shiwen was stepping on his body this time. The sky-shaking Turtle Emperor vomited blood again, and then his whole body fell to the ground fiercely. Rumble, like a comet hitting the earth. It immediately set off boundless waves of dust, and the ground shattered into an astonishing crack that was tens of thousands of miles long. It was bottomless, as if it directly led to the boundless depths of the earth. It's like a game. An Emperor Lord could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva and said, when facing Yi Shiwen, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor had no power to fight back at all. Whether it was speed, the great way, or the strength of the physical body, they were completely crushed by Yi Shiwen. That was why he felt as if Yi Shiwen was just playing around and easily dealt with the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor. It should be known that this sky-shaking Turtle Emperor was an overlord in the Stormy Sea region. It could call the wind and summon the rain, and it was an extremely powerful existence. If they hadn't seen him being beaten like a dead dog by Yi Shiwen with their own eyes, how could they possibly believe that this was the infamous sky-shaking Turtle Emperor? You do have some skills. Emperor Li looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of shock in his eyes. He felt that the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor couldn't pose any threat to him. However, it was impossible for him to defeat the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor so easily. The strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed was really too amazing. He hadn't used any tricks or plots. He had simply and crudely beaten up the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, but the effect was even more amazing. Yi Shiwen, the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, was smashed down like a dumpling. It seemed to have lost all sense of reason as it roared out continuously. Surprisingly, it had reverted to its original form. It was a peerless, ferocious beast over 10,000 zhang in height, like a pillar that could prop up the heavens. This peerless, ferocious beast alone seemed capable of supporting the entire world. His entire head was incomparably huge. He looked ferocious and fanged. His eyes exuded a devouring light as he stared at Yi Shiwen with hatred. How is it possible? How did he transform into his original body? In the distance, Gue Yuan He Jimin, who was cultivating on the 5-prison peak, suddenly opened his eyes. There was still a bit of shock in his eyes because he discovered that the sky-shaking turtle emperor had transformed into his original body. For these foreign creatures, unless they encountered an opponent that was difficult to defeat, it was impossible to transform from their Tao body to their original body. Especially looking at his ferocious appearance, it was obvious that he had been forced into a dead end. He was still very clear about the strength of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Although it was not as good as him, it shouldn't be pushed to this point. If he went all out without holding anything back, it might be possible. Could it be that Emperor Li has taken action? He suddenly became nervous. Not only was Tiger Emperor Gung Jin very afraid of Emperor Li, but he was also the same. Emperor Li was definitely in existence of the same level as him. In terms of strength, there was not much difference. He was definitely a difficult opponent to deal with. Although he and the sky-shaking turtle emperor had been fighting for many years and were in a state of competition, he was even more clear that this sky-shaking turtle emperor was one of the successors that the great ancestor favored. If anything happened to him, even he would have to face the boundless anger of the great ancestor of the sky-shaking turtle emperor. He opened his magic eyes almost immediately and looked over there. He saw that the person floating in the void like a peerless demon god was actually not Emperor Li, but an unfamiliar human emperor. However, he had almost immediately guessed the identity of this person. It could only be that martial Emperor Yi Shiwen is actually so powerful. Gue Yuan He Jimin was almost immediately shocked. Yi Shiwen could actually force the sky-shaking turtle emperor to this point. Doesn't this mean that his true strength is comparable to me? No, I can't let this go. In the next moment, his figure disappeared in the void. Oomph. Facing the sky-shaking turtle emperor who had directly transformed into his original body, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change the slightest. Above his head, the martial emperor's seal was rotating, and around the martial emperor's seal, many powerful magical powers emerged in an instant. 6 paths of reincarnation fist, sky flipping seal, Namingly fire, thunder emperor, heavenly cannon. These magical powers seemed to have transformed into one human after another, emitting a terrifying aura that almost shattered the entire world into chaos, returning to the endless chaotic era. As long as these attacks were slightly formed, they smashed towards the sky-shaking turtle emperor. Bang! With a loud roar, these magical powers, along with the martial emperor's seal, directly smashed onto the sky-shaking turtle emperor's body, bringing about a sound like metal colliding. The entire body of the sky-shaking turtle emperor shrank into the shell. His shell was engraved with a defensive matrix, like the hardest turtle shell in the world. A burst of sparks flew. Ha ha ha, Yi Shiwen, don't think you can do anything to me. The sky-shaking turtle emperor was extremely proud. This was also the last life-saving magical power of their tribe, and no one could break it at all. This was also the root of their tribe's foothold in the Stormy Sea area, and it was more important than the sky-shaking seal. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Yi Shiwen's eyes were extremely cold, and his indifferent voice came out. Above his head, the martial emperor's seal began to grow bigger and bigger, like an ancient divine mountain, glowing with a terrifying divine light, smashing down fiercely. Bang! 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 The martial emperor's seal continued to fall, but there was a continuous sound like metal colliding. In the beginning, the sky-shaking turtle emperor, who was hiding in the shell, did not feel anything at all. In terms of defensive strength, it was indeed ranked among the best that Yi Shiwen had seen. However, soon, he discovered that something was wrong, because the power that smashed on his body was getting more and more terrifying, and the strength was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! This attack directly shook him to the point that he spat out a mouthful of old blood. How can your strength increase so much? He opened his eyes wide, as if he wanted to see Shiwen's attack clearly. Soon, he saw Yishiwen's move. Ominous waves 5 overlapped. This move was also a well-known existence in the Stormy Sea area. How could he not know it? However, he had never seen an outsider use ominous waves 5 overlapped. Now, the power of these 5 layers merged together and directly smashed down on one point. Even the defense that he had originally prepared was completely useless. The defensive formation engraved on his back was the first to be unable to withstand it, and it collapsed on the spot, turning into runes all over the sky and dissipating in front of everyone's eyes. Immediately after, the martial emperor's seal directly fell on his back, without any cover. Crack! The place that was smashed by the martial emperor's seal actually had dense cracks appear, and with the place as the center, the cracks spread out in all directions. Bang! Another strike landed, and the densely packed cracks grew even larger. In an instant, Yishiwen didn't know how many times he had smashed with a martial emperor's seal, but the huge outer shell finally completely turned into dust under Yishiwen's continuous bombardment. He actually broke it. Many people's eyes widened in disbelief. The most troublesome thing about the sky-shaking turtle clan was their outer shell. If they couldn't defeat their opponents, they would hide. Unless it was a big shot whose strength was above the 7th realm. No one else had this ability at all. However, Yishiwen did it. Could it be that he was already at the 7th realm? Boom! Without the protection of the outer shell, the sky-shaking turtle emperor almost screamed in pain, and his physical body collapsed in all directions. Although his physical body was also very tyrannical, without the protection of the outer shell, it was nothing in front of the martial emperor's seal. Just one blow had caused his physical body to collapse, and the shocking attack power of the martial emperor's seal was finally displayed in front of everyone. What a powerful seal technique. It actually contains 3,000 kinds of martial arts. This kind of creativity is simply amazing. Emperor Li's eyes couldn't help but shine. Every emperor had their own unique method of becoming an emperor. However, there were many Emperor Li in the Fortune God dynasty, which meant that there were some ways to become an emperor. Although they were not the same, there were some similarities. Even with his vast experience, he had never seen Yishiwen become an emperor with 3,000 kinds of martial arts. Without the protection of the outer shell, the sky-shaking turtle emperor was not a match at all. His physical body collapsed on the spot, and even his spirit was pulled out by Yishiwen. He was completely defeated. Stop! A loud shout came from the void in the distance. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.